Ooh, that is a hot mic. We will fix that in a second. Hi, everybody. Hold on. I'll be right with you. Joining you. There we go. That seems to be... I don't know why the volume on it changes every time. It drives me a little crazy. Oh, I'm being warned about what we're going to be covering already before it happens. I love that idea. Hold on. Let me get the door, and then I'll be right up. There we go. My office is, the floor is completely littered with clothing and wigs and craziness and hi. So if I'm a little frazzled today and I drift from conversation or fall asleep on my computer, it's because I'm doing all my sexy liberal sketches and it's a lot of production for one person. I'm a one-man band over here. It would be really excellent to be back in the days where I could like call over a couple of friends and go, hey, I need somebody to hold a mic and do some stuff, but I don't want to kill you, so stay home. Oh, thanks. My hair's a wreck, actually. I don't know. It has largely everything to do with the fact that I've been throwing on wigs and taking them off really quickly and doing multiple characters and just like... in all seriousness, the sane thing would be to take this week off doing the show and work on my sketches and all that stuff and then go back to, normal shows next week. But I'm not a sane person. I'm a crazy workaholic. So it's actually, kind of invigorating to have all this stuff going on. I'm even drinking iced coffee today with a little bit of creamer in it, even. Just to get a little fat in my system. What's up? Oh, Tristan, wow, that's welcome to being introduced to Queer as Folk for the first time. That's fantastic. If any of you haven't seen it, and you're not, you don't shudder at the idea of seeing me nude, I highly recommend it if you're in the proper age range and the like. Thank you, Joe Carter. Appreciate that, and thank you, Lisa Mia Moore. I'm glad you're back, Jill. Hope you're well. We've been thinking about you. Hey, Brian, thank you. Appreciate it. And Caitlin, I'd love an iced coffee. I'd give you one. I really would. This iced coffee was brought to you by our lovely patrons who buy me a coffee every month by being Patreon supporters. There's no particular person. We'll just... It's a collective one right now, but it's good. Either way, I'm going to be up at ridiculous hours the next 3 days. I just know it. The problem is, like, I write all these pieces and stuff, and then so much of this stuff happens, this craziness, and then I'm like, that's newer than everything else. Under a normal circumstance, I would just go out and do live stand-up and just do a show for you guys. But, sort of semi off the cuff. But in this case, I wanted up the production value because people are seeing, something without an audience. It just feels like it needs that extra thing. So I intend, well then, Kristen, thank you so much for the coffee. There we go. Thank you. We'll see. But I'm very proud of the stuff that I've been doing, and I want to keep upping it. But I'm doing it by myself, so it's a tall order. There you go. Well, Heather, yeah, here we are. It's a live show. This is we do this every day. This time, 3 to 5, approximately. We don't have hard numbers like real cable news or anything. But then, of course, we get to interact more. So there's swings and roundabouts. Every cloud. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to, Richard, Grant Imahara of Mythbusters, that was a complete shock. He had an aneurysm apparently. I mean, every time somebody has something that can even be remotely like stroke related or aneurysm related, those kind of things, like it makes me think of, is it COVID related and all that stuff. But anyways, he was such a sweetheart. But so big, like, it's just that's a lot, and his friends and family must be going through hell right now. So much love to them. Yeah. Whew. Okay, so here we go. So the president has called. I can always tell when it's going to be a fun one because it just says President Donald Trump holds a press conference, which really is like everybody in the office was tired of hearing his shit and decided he needed to just vent, and he was going to do it in New Hampshire, but they had to cancel it because of weather. Yeah, Kelly Preston as well. I mean, I personally have lost a couple of people during this that I didn't get to see before they went, and I'm like a lot of people waiting to process it until this is kind of all over. Or some version of over. So I'm just holding those things together, and we will just, yeah. Yes, this was not this was not a press conference. This was him forcing reporters to be his audience for his campaign event. Yeah, Can't Stop Lying. I don't. Yeah, we'll have a whole discussion at some point when there's room for there to be a tear letting about all the people we've lost in memoriam during this. But until then, like I said, what we do here is we hold ourselves together. We don't get carried away by anything in particular right now, because maintaining your sanity and your sense of humor and your sense of optimism and hope is the key goal. There's plenty of misery to be found. Here we will attempt something else. That's all I'm going to say, if that makes sense. So, yeah, this is the space we're in. So here we go. By the way, here they, he of course made everybody wait forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
And then he had a curious voice introduce him. I think it's kind of, I don't know if he was making a point by choosing the person he did, because he's not a big fan of accents. I'm surprised he hit it, he left the building at the right time. Because anytime somebody speaks with an accent, he's like, excuse me, louder. Did he just gesture for everyone to stand up? Jesus. Right out of the gate. Watch his right hand. When they go, ladies and gentlemen, here it comes. He's leaning out the door already.
Ladies and gentlemen,
then they announce
the President of the United States.
Okay, I think he was just adjusting his jacket and breaking wind. Oh, God.
Thank you very much, everybody. Please. Hope it's not too hot, but it's pretty warm. Thank you.
Yeah, you could have done this inside. You could have, yeah.
So, we've had a big day in the stock market. Things are coming back, and they're coming back very rapidly.
No, they're not.
A lot sooner than people thought. People are feeling...
No, they're not. No, they aren't. Most of the big Wall Street guys that basically have scruff on their butt from you kissing their ass say 2023.
Good about our country. People are feeling good about therapeutics and...
I feel good about therapeutics, don't you? You know what I mean? I wake up in the morning, I'm like, therapeutics. Therapeutics.
Possible vaccines.
And possible vaccines. Sorry, I forgot that. Therapeutics and possible vaccines. That's how I wake up every morning. I don't know about you.
But we're going to go over quite a bit, and maybe at the end we'll take some questions if we have...
Maybe? What do you mean maybe? It's a press conference.
Time. It's not too hot.
If it's not too hot. We'd love to ask you about Russian bounties on soldiers and why you keep kissing Putin's ass and doing FO about it. But it's just too hot. You know what I mean? We're reporters. We're used to air conditioning.
Today I signed legislation and an executive order
Which was it?
to hold China accountable for its oppressive actions against the people of Hong Kong.
Oh, all right. So now we're going to do something about Hong Kong. Now it matters. It didn't. All this stuff didn't matter while you were making your trade deal? Has the behavior changed somehow?
The Hong Kong Autonomy Act, which I signed this afternoon, passed unanimously through Congress.
Weird, huh? Yeah. Just imagine that.
This law gives my administration powerful
It gives your administration powerful tools.
tools to hold responsible the individuals and the entities involved in extinguishing Hong Kong's freedom. We've all watched what happened. Not a good situation.
What part of it stood out to you? I love when he goes, "You've seen it. We've all seen it. So much of this. Yeah.
Their freedom
You've seen it. What happened? Lots of video
been
of
taken
things.
away, their rights have been taken away, and with it goes Hong Kong, in my opinion, because it will no longer be able to compete with free markets. A lot of people will be leaving Hong Kong, I suspect.
Yeah. You mean after it returns to being Chinese territory? That whole business? Oh, that happened in the 90s.
And we're going to do a lot more business because of it, because we just lost one competitor. It's the way it is.
We lost a competitor. I don't know if you know this. Hong Kong just sunk into the sea.
Very, very serious competitor that we incentivize to take a lot of business and do well.
Hong Kong?
And we gave them a lot of business by doing what we did. We gave them things that nobody else had the right to do, and that gave them a big edge over other markets. And because of that edge, they've done really historic business, tremendous business, far bigger than anybody would have thought years ago when we did this gift. It was really a gift to freedom.
Really a gift to freedom. That's a terrible idea. How dare we?
Today, I also signed an executive order ending U.S. preferential treatment for Hong Kong.
Wait a minute. If you're going to support Hong Kong and its freedom and autonomy, why would you do that? Why would you follow that up? What the hell are you thinking?
Hong Kong will now be treated the same as mainland China. No special privileges, no special economic treatment, and no export of sensitive technologies. In addition to that,
so basically, their only recourse will be to cling to the mainland for their economic security.
You know, we're placing massive tariffs and have placed very large tariffs on China. First time that's ever happened to China. Billions of dollars have been paid to the United States, of which I've given quite a bit to the farmers and
those are tax dollars
for our country.
No,
because they were targeted.
Yeah, tell us how many farm bankruptcies there have been.
And that's been going on for 3 years.
Has it? Really?
First time anybody's ever done anything like that.
Nobody's ever put a tariff on China before. There's no tariffs at all. Did you know that? Did you know that up till now, China could just, I mean, they didn't even have to pay shipping. They were like the Amazon of Asia.
And prior to the plague,
I don't know what he's talking about.
pouring in from China, they were having the worst years, you know, in 67 years. And I don't want them to have a bad year. I want them to have a good year. But they were taking advantage of the United States for many, many years. And that's...
Okay, so you don't want them to have a bad year. You want them to do well. You want their markets to do well. But you don't want them to take advantage of the United States. But you do want them to do well. Okay. And?
Stopping. But then the virus came in, and the world is a different place. But we're now getting back. And one of the reasons the market's doing so, it's almost at the point that it was at prior to the plague, almost.
Yeah, it's almost as if the stock market actually thrives when unemployment is high.
We're getting very close. It's a great thing. It's an amazing thing what our people have done.
Yeah. Yeah, and Obama stopped the COVID testing. I don't know if you know this, but Obama, Biden stopped their COVID testing cold. They should have.
And
yeah, his hair's white today. You know, sometimes it's, I mean, does it fade that fast, or do they dust spray it? Is it a washout color? One would think he would you know, dye it, or do they spray tan it like they do his face sometimes? Are we going to find out that his hair color is really just the orange from his face blowing back all over his
They've
head?
endured. No administration has been tougher on China than this administration. We imposed historic.
No administration has allowed a disease from China, in your words, to kill 130,000 Americans so far, either. To get a deal signed, because you admitted to going soft on China all of March and April, because you were trying to get your deal through.
Tariffs.
Sorry, February, March.
We stood up to China's intellectual property theft at a level that nobody's ever come close.
You mean the level that the Republicans in the Senate would finally let through?
Confronted untrustworthy Chinese technology and telecom providers. We convinced many countries, and I did this myself for the most part, not to use Huawei.
You mean Huawei?
Because we think it's an unsafe security risk. It's a big security risk.
Yeah, now you do.
Talked many countries out of using it.
Yeah, sure you did.
They want to do business with us. They can't use it. Just today, I believe that UK announced that they're not going to be using it. And that was up in the air for a long time, but they've decided. And you look at Italy, you look at many other countries. We withdrew from the Chinese-dominated
Oh, God.
WHO. And
we withdrew. I think the word you're looking for is retreated.
we fully rebuilt the United States military, the WHO,
Is he going to doze off in the middle of this again?
World Health Organization. We were paying close to $500 million a year. China was paying $39 million a year.
Uh-huh.
And
So some people would say that we value the lives of our citizens more, so we have a higher investment, whereas the Chinese have less of an investment in it. You know, you could say that we, dollar for dollar, pound for pound, person for person, value our citizens more, and therefore we invest in the World Health Organization. You're not paying a non-pandemic fee.
China had too much say. They worked it very hard, which is a bad thing done by our past administrations. But we were tough, and we were saying, I said, why are we paying so much more than China?
Because we value our citizens more?
China has 1.4 billion people. We have.
Yeah, are we paying, are we getting into the per capita question?
And you know, when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what? 325, probably 325 million approximately. Nobody can give the exact count. We're trying to get an exact count, but you have, over the years, many illegals who have come into the country. So
This is the great conspiracy that he can't get an exact count. How many people exactly? 320,604,962. 3, 2, 5, 1. What the hell is this number happening? Well, sir, every minute there are births and deaths in a country. I need an exact number. As of when? As of always.
depends on how you want to count it. But you could say 325 to 350 million people as opposed to 1.4.
Jenny says Epstein's penis was egg-shaped. Is that why Trump walks funny? What are you talking about?
Billion people. And the world trade is terrible. That deal is terrible. The World Health is a terrible deal.
World Health Organization and World Trade Organization, not related. They just have the world and organization at the beginning and end of them. They don't deal with the same shit. What are you talking about?
We've been very tough on the World Trade Organization, and we've been, I guess, as tough as you can get on World Health. We withdrew our money.
Yeah, you've been as tough as possible. 1/5 of the deaths of COVID cases in the world. You're totally tough.
Told them we're getting out. Doesn't mean that someday we won't go back.
It's not a deal, it's an organization. Exactly, Templeton's a rat.
And maybe we will when it's correctly run, but they made a lot of bad predictions and they said a lot of bad things about what to do and how to do it, and they turned out to be wrong.
So we've been a part of the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization. Up till this point, we were happy with the WHO being on autopilot. You were pulling people out of China. You shut down our own pandemic response team, which was in concert with them. World Trade Organization, you clearly are happy about the volume of money coming into the United States. We're not a developing country, but weren't we winning up till this China virus hit?
And
the World Trade Organization's is the bad guy now because you sold $50 billion worth of food to China that they needed?
They were really a puppet of China. And make no mistake, we hold China fully responsible for concealing the virus and unleashing it upon the world. They could have stopped it. They should have stopped it. Would have been very easy to do at the source when it...
Really? What do? You just shoot people with flamethrowers? What does that look like to you? Honest to God, a contagion breaks out. They're welding people into their apartments. They're snatching people off the street, putting them in metal boxes, and driving them to hospitals that look like prisons. They shut off borders all around an entire province. You couldn't travel out of Wuhan. People were like literally breaking out of that area like it was prison. What more would you have done? You went golfing in February. It would have been very easy to stop it at the source, at that old folks' home in Seattle, if we'd have just nuked it from space.
Happened. In contrast, Joe Biden's entire career has been a gift to the Chinese Communist Party and to the calamity of errors that they've made. They made so many errors.
You mean the comedy of errors? The calamity of errors. Oh, Shakespeare. Has somebody hooked up a belt to him because he could operate as a turbine right now as he spins in his grave? Calamity of errors.
And it's been devastating for the American worker. China has taken out hundreds of billions of dollars a year from our country.
Talk to Walmart.
We rebuilt China. I give them all the credit in the world. I don't give the credit for the people that used to stand here because they allowed this to happen where hundreds of billions of dollars were taken out of the United States Treasury in order to rebuild China.
What? What are you talking about? China owns 8% of our debt. Money wasn't taken out of the treasury. We didn't give loans to China so that they could rebuild. What are you talking about? Businesses in this country relocated factories or started factories from scratch in China because of low-cost labor. Plastic crap and cheap clothing made in sweatshops sold at Walmart became the primary driver of a huge chunk of our economy over the last 25 years. Go yell at Sam Wall.
There's no company and no country in the world has ever ripped off the United States like the incredible job that they did on this country and the people that...
You're wearing a Chinese flag pin.
Ran it.
Your flag pin was made in China.
Possibly it's one of the reasons. Certainly it's one of the very big reasons, trade and things related.
Trump ties made in China.
To trade that I got elected in the first place. I've been talking about it for a long time, along with...
Why isn't Ivanka out here with you with her 11 Chinese trademarks? By the way, 欢迎我的中国的朋友。你好。
Many other subjects, frankly. Joe Biden supported China's entry into the World Trade Organization, one of the greatest geopolitical and economic disasters in world history.
Really? Because it dragged hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and opened up Chinese markets, and they moved from being a gigantic communist force to basically a free market buoy.
If you look at China, you look at the moment they joined the world trade, they were flatlining for years and years.
Right. Remember when we used to all use the starving children in China to manipulate our children into eating their broccoli, and that died because starvation is no longer a problem in China because the Chinese took a hold of that and went, we're losing a lot of people, and we're having to literally sterilize people because we have no food to feed half these assholes. We need to do something. And America comes along. Maybe open up your markets to the rest of the world and open up trade and travel and those kind of things, and you might find that there's a lot of money to be made alongside of industries to be created. And China currently has more millionaires in it than the U.S. population. See, and largely because of Walmart.
Years and decades. And then all of a sudden they joined the World Trade Organization, and they went like a rocket ship.
You mean they joined the free market economy? I thought Republicans were for that at one point.
They were given all sorts of advantages. They were considered a developing country.
They were. Do you remember that whole thing you just said about flatlining for a long time?
As a developing country, they got tremendous advantages over the United States and other countries. And they took advantage of those advantages and then some.
Those advantages have had their advantages taken advantage of, which gave them an advantage in the advantage department.
Biden personally led the effort to give China permanent most favored nation status, which is a tremendous advantage for a country to have. Few countries have it, but the United States doesn't have it.
Yeah, we do. That's including them in most favored nations. We have that. We have that. Also, Russia doesn't belong in the G7/G8 for a couple reasons. One, they're a mafia-run criminal enterprise as a country. No offense to the Russian people, bless your hearts. Sorry, and they're killing our soldiers. Well, they're not doing it themselves. They're paying for it. Cash taken out of America's treasury, as you would say.
Did probably never even asked for it because they didn't know what they were doing. As Vice President, Biden was a leading advocate of the Paris Climate Accord, which was...
Yeah. And along with every other Western nation, especially the ones, if you'll notice, who have a lower death rate than us. Really, we're gonna slingshot like xenophobia towards Chinese people coming to get us all to Paris now, where European whites are now the problem.
Unbelievably expensive to our country. Would have crushed American manufacturers while allowing China to pollute the atmosphere with
sure,
impunity. Yet one more gift from...
No, it wouldn't. It doesn't... They have to join it. It's not about letting them get away with it. They're going to do what they're going to do. Other countries are... This is like saying your neighbor eats nothing but fast food. And the fact that you cooked dinner tonight with your family allows your neighbor to eat junk food. It has nothing to do with them. You are setting up a situation that is better for people, and anybody who wants to be involved can join in. China being outside of it would also eliminate some of their trade recognition in it. You see, it's also partly a trade deal. Part of the reason why you guys are against it, why the Republicans are against this, is because to get back into the manufacturing zones of China and some other countries and India, they would have to behave based on a standard that we've all agreed is valuable. But these guys want to do their shit under the table.
Biden to the Chinese Communist Party. They took all of...
Wait, I thought you had a personal relationship with Xi and you have a lot of respect for each other and your buddies.
The advantage away from us. They took everything away.
They took everything away from us. They took it away. It's gone now. I've nothing left.
They don't have oil. We would have had to close up tremendous amounts of our energy to qualify eventually, not too far into the future.
You mean 30 to 50 years?
We would have had to do things that would have been unbelievably destructive to our country, including the possible closing of 25% of our businesses. Think of that.
Why would we have to close 25% of our businesses? Why are 25% of our businesses polluting on that level? Is it a situation? Is it the coffee shop? Is that what we're talking about? My old analogy about the coffee shop, that if I had, according to Republicans, if I ran a coffee shop and it employed 4 or 5 people, but I had to shoot a customer every 3 months, that would be okay because the economic benefit would outweigh the dead people. What kind of shitty opinion do you have of 25% of the businesses in the United States that they are nothing but polluters?
And it was going to cost us hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
And gain us hundreds of millions of lives over time? Save us money in healthcare? Again, remember, this is the guy who kicked the pandemic response team to the curb, mainly because Obama created it, but also because it cost money. He said it was going to cost $23 million over the course of 10 years. And so he got rid of it. That's too expensive. $23 million. That's too expensive. We can't afford that. And what have we dumped on the economy? The same amount of money that we dumped on the Afghanistan and Iraq wars in 8 years, we've dumped in 8 weeks.
The privilege of being involved in the Paris Climate Accord. And you just have to look at what took place this year in Paris, in France, where money was being sent to countries all over the world, and the people of France didn't want to take it, and they didn't, and they did a lot of rioting.
Explain to us the geopolitical significance of the Yellow Vest protests and the internal struggles and what that has to do with their foreign aid versus the price of gas in their own country. Please go ahead. Also explain to us, everybody, if you know, where 80% of France's energy comes from. Tell us. Tell us.
They had their taxes
Go ahead.
raised. We would have had to raise our taxes. And it was a disaster. I've been given a lot of credit for what I did there. It took a certain amount of courage, I guess, because...
I'm so brave. I am so brave.
Sounds so nice, the Paris Climate Accord, but it wasn't good for us at all. America lost nearly 10,000 factories while Joe Biden was vice president. Think of that, 10,000 factories. He wrote something today, and he made a statement today that I
He made notes.
wrote down, pretty accurate.
Your notes? What you wrote down or what he said?
So Biden was here for 47 years.
Wow, that is how can you be VP that long?
8 years, the last 8 years, not long ago, as vice president, he said,
Yeah, 3.5 years. You've been president for 3.5 years.
1 in 5 miles of our highways are still in poor condition. Well, we're doing a good job on highways, but why didn't he fix them 3 years ago? Why didn't he fix them?
Why haven't you fixed them? You're in charge. He was vice president.
Tens of thousands of bridges are in disrepair and on the verge of collapse. Well, it's probably not a right number.
Yeah, because you can't get infrastructure through, and Republicans always run interference on infrastructure unless they can tie it to their own state.
But
thanks, Billy Dana.
Bridges that should have been fixed. Why didn't he fix them? He was there for 8 years with President Obama. Why didn't they fix them? Tens of thousands of bridges. This is what he wrote.
Yeah, do you have any idea how many bridges are in this country? They fixed a bunch. Isn't it Infrastructure Week?
High-speed broadband. We want high-speed broadband. Well, why didn't he get it?
A couple reasons. One, it's only become a viable technology in the last 6 years, and Republicans run against it.
3 years ago is not a long time. And
well, you certainly haven't gotten it done in 3.5 years, and you were president of the United States. I mean, he was a congressman and a senator, you know, representing a district and then a state, and then he became vice president. He did whip the ACA, he whipped the Violence Against Women Act, he managed to whip the crime bill back in the 90s. He's got a decent list of accomplishments, good or bad, depending on your side of the aisle, but he's done shit.
he didn't do any of the things, but now
He hasn't made broadband. So is that a priority for you now? Are you launching, is this announcing a broadband initiative? Are you going to announce that today as part of your, this is part of your second term? I mean, what a great time to do it. Honest to God, what a great time this would be to go. As a matter of fact, he was talking about how bad we need it. I've been talking about it forever, which he hasn't, but he could just lie. It never stopped him before. And then he could go, it will be the priority in my administration to create a new version of the World Trade Organization where I bring together the greatest economies in the world for a cleaner, better, more prosperous, blah, 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 you know, and the structure of that is being laid out and we're developing a plan for it. He won't, but he could say this out of it. He could talk out of his ass. He's done it before, like I said. And he could say, priority one for this, and if anything has shown us we need it in this country, like this pandemic, is that we need coast-to-coast, nationwide, highest level broadband possible for the United States of America. We're the most wealthy country in the world. Every corner of this country and all the middle states, you could open up real estate. Can you imagine the real estate that would be opened up in value simply by having the coastal quality of internet available in the Midwest? I mean, and a baseline of it available like water to every household. This in and of itself would this would be a winning issue. Now Biden's already done it, so he can't, and he never thought of even caring about it until just now. But he could actually do it. He could snipe it. He'd go, I can do it in my second term. Biden can't get it through. He never got it through before, but I got stuff through. I've gotten the Republicans to bend on stuff. The Republicans are the only ones who are blocking this stuff in the first place.
he says he's going to be president, and as president, he's going to do all the things that he didn't do. He never did.
When he wasn't president? Well, what were you doing when you weren't president? Besides denying black people the ability to rent in your buildings and housing Russian pimps and gambling, like illegal gambling operations in Trump Tower, and Russian anchor babies being housed and born in Trump properties in Florida and Doral. What were you doing before you were pretending to live in Florida and trying to vote there illegally? Oh yeah, I remember. You were running a charity and siphoning the money from the charity to buy pictures of yourself that create an illusion of you being handsome to hang in your own properties, making fake Time magazine covers, which is like right out of a fake it till you make it video from 1985, which I'm all for if you weren't born a billionaire. What else were you doing? Oh yeah, you were writing a book about success when you were literally the biggest real estate loser in the New York market, living off your father's money. Besides that, Hal's a communist sympathizer. Get out of here.
Never did anything except make very bad decisions.
I may have sympathy for people who live in a communist country because I feel bad for them because I'm a proud American, but I don't sympathize with the system. Meanwhile, I haven't borrowed $300 million just to keep my company afloat from the Chinese like he has.
Especially on foreign policy. So Joe Biden and President Obama freely allowed China to pillage our factories, plunder our communities, and steal our most
I thought that was NAFTA.
precious secrets.
They just let them do, yeah, they didn't file cases with the International Criminal Courts. They didn't fight it. They didn't stop companies. They didn't arrest people. None of that happened. No, the history basically starts for him on like January 19th, 2017.
And I've stopped it largely, but I've stopped it.
You've stopped it. That's all right. Yeah, it's completely stopped. Except for that part where the ink was still wet when the China virus attacked. I guess you stopped it by what? Rope-a-doping them into dropping the largest bio attack on American soil in history, which is what you're alleging that they did because they could have stopped it. So if they didn't stop it, they chose not to stop it, which sounds like a bioweapon attack.
And it wasn't easy.
Aw.
Because you talk about a certain power of the telephone and the calls where they would call and say, no, we don't want to do that. And other countries would call on behalf of China, but I did it. I did what has to be done. And you just take a look at what's gone on and take a look at at the numbers where they devalued their currency in order to pay the tariffs. Now the Democrat Party is calling for defund.
So they devalued the currency to pay the tariffs. So there was no net gain in money from the tariffs themselves, which is why the taxpayers paid $65 billion to cover $50 billion of Chinese purchases from China, and it still went to big agribusiness and not local farmers.
Of our military, think of that.
The guy he put in charge of the economy, Steve Mnuchin, set it up so that they're going, as policy of this administration, the PPP loans that are going to be forgiven are the ones over $2 million. Over $2 million. If you got over $2 million, you will see large portions of your loan forgiven. If you got under $2 million, like you're a really small business or a rural town business, or you only have a few employees and you needed that money, you're going to have to pay all of it back with interest.
Defunding. They want to defund our military. When China is building...
No. They don't want to overspend on the military. You're building shit just to sell to the Saudis. You're using our soldiers as security guards for Saudi oil fields. They're human shields right now to keep the Iranians and the Houthis from firing on those facilities. Because why? Because we have a stake in those? And that escalation would help us in some way?
A massive military. They're building a massive military, and Biden wants to defund our military. And
we have 6 times the military of the top 6 nations in the world.
The world needs American strength right now more than ever, and we've got it. We've got now, soon, as all this equipment comes in, all made in the USA, we've got...
F-35 is made in, I think, 8 different countries?
The newest, most incredible weapons anywhere in the world. We have the best tanks, the best ships, the best missiles, rockets. We have the
Tell us about the rocket that goes 17 times faster than any other rocket.
best of everything. We have the best
Because Putin said they had one that goes 12 times faster, and so
fighter jet.
he just scratched off the bottom leg of the 2.
The F-35, the F-18.
F-35 isn't made in America.
All of these assets are being built. Tankers, incredible tankers, bombers. Hope we don't have to use them.
Build a bunch of stuff that we never want to use.
But we have the most incredible military. When I came in, the military was totally depleted. It was.
A bug just flew in his mouth. It's like the like Belloc in at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
At a level that was just absolutely incredible. You know the statements. I made the statements before. I told you what generals told me about our...
We have no ammunition. Yeah. Why were they low on smart bombs? Which they weren't, by the way. The Obama administration had just ordered $1.5 billion more of these little smart missiles because they were spending them blowing up ISIS at such a clip they were running out of stuff. It wasn't because we didn't have enough stuff. We were just overusing it. We were carpet bombing huge sections of Iraq and the Afghan territories and part of Syria.
and I'll make
We have no bullets.
them again. If somebody needs them, we'll give them to you. Very well documented.
Yeah? Okay. Fire it up. Let's see them. Where's the documentation?
As
You're going to hold up a piece of paper and wave it? Look, I wrote a 0 on this, so it must mean that there's nothing.
Vice President Biden,
But you've forgotten about the greatest.
a lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua. Opposed tariffs, and he was standing up for China. He didn't want to do anything to disrupt the relationship with China, even though China was taking us to the cleaners. He opposed my very strict travel ban on Chinese nationals.
No, everybody was against only doing that. See, when you come out and you go, I know, I'll just stop anybody who's Chinese from coming into the country. That's racist and xenophobic and doesn't actually solve the problem, because there's lots of travelers over there, people from other countries. Or you'll go, no, I'm just going to stop all the Chinese people who don't have non-resident visas. If you have a non-resident visa, you can come in. Well, you think, is there a checkbox on your visa that says you do or don't have a disease? No, this was because we don't want more. I think poor people spread disease. So I don't want poor Chinese people visiting their relatives in the country. The rich ones can come in, the ones who are buying tons of meat products from the United States. And then magically, where do we have these huge breakouts in the middle of the country? Where?
To stop the spread of the China virus. He was totally against it. Xenophobic.
No, he wasn't. He was totally against only doing it. And then going golfing and thinking, oh, there's 15 cases and it's gone. And
He called me xenophobic.
yeah, you are.
A month later, he admitted I was right. We would have had thousands of people additionally die if we let people come in from heavily infected China. But we stopped it. We did a travel ban in January. Nancy Pelosi was dancing in the streets of Chinatown.
Oh, Jesus, we're doing the dancing in the streets thing. Chinatown in San Francisco is full of Chinese Americans. She was making the point that Chinese people aren't intrinsically contagious due to their genetics. She wasn't dancing in the streets. She was taking part in a celebration here because those were Americans. None of the Chinatowns in this country have become contagion points. There were no Chinatown super spreaders, not a one. And not in San Francisco, which has a huge Chinatown, not in LA, not in Dallas or Houston, which also have huge Chinatowns. She was making the point that, unlike you don't think Chinese people are the problem, even if the disease comes from China itself or was coming in from China itself. There's a difference between Chinese country, Chinese people, kind of like Ireland and Irish Americans, Scottish. You see the variation there? People were getting beat up for being Asian, even if they're not Chinese, because people were thinking they were spreading the disease. Your followers in particular.
San Francisco a month later, and even later than that, and others too. They all thought what I did was a terrible mistake. We would have lost, in fact, Dr. Fauci said he would have lost thousands of additional people.
And if you'd have done the lockdown 2 weeks earlier, you'd have saved tens of thousands of people. You would have cut the death rate in half. Why don't you talk about that? They literally had to corral him and surround him with charts to get him to shut this down.
If President Trump had to do that, and I was a crowd of one.
That's what it was. You were the one person. You know what? We should shut down travel from China. You mean 40 other countries and 3 airlines have already done yesterday, sir? Yeah. Why are you guys against me?
Because even experts didn't want to do it. They thought it was a mistake. And then I did Europe.
No, they thought it was a mistake to only do that and then go golfing. You had to set up track and tracing. You had to isolate the people who had it in the country. You had to do there were people storming through in the last 24 hours through the airports to get in. And then you still let 40,000 people in because they had business in the United States.
When I started seeing what was going on in Italy and Spain and France and other countries in Europe. I did a ban on people coming in from Europe. That would have been
Yeah, but you didn't include the UK because Boris Johnson's a friend of yours.
disastrous for our country also.
Most of the cases in New York came from Europe.
And we saved tens of thousands of lives, but we actually saved millions of lives by closing up. We saved millions, potentially millions.
No. You save millions of lives by doing any of the normal steps to contain the virus. The 2.5 to 5 million number that they continually cite, that he continually cites, and I'm annoyed that he keeps bringing this up, that's the outside if you do nothing. If you just go Swedish herd immunity, just let it roll, don't do anything, no mitigation, no masks, no washing your hands, no policy nationwide, just pretend we have no government. Go straight up Yemen, right? That's what he's talking about. When he says 2.5 to 5 million people could have died from this, or even a greater number, that number is from the CDC saying if we had no functioning government and it just rolled through the population, that's the expected death toll. And this asshole is saying that's an option in his presidency. That he should get points for doing anything. That doing nothing is an option. Because, 2.5 to 5 million Americans, who needs them?
Millions of lives. Could be a number that we're actually working on, but it could be 2 to 3 million lives. So we're at 135,000, which is terrible. One is too much. But we would have had millions of people dead from this curse that came at us. But
if we were what? Venezuela, if we were Yemen, if we were, if we were like the unincorporated parts of the Congo, you mean like that?
Did what we had to do, and now
why would you be proud that there's a version of this where you do nothing, where you abdicate your role as president entirely and tell the CDC and every other aspect of government, the Congress, the Senate, the Supreme Court, the military, the NIH, to stand down? Because that's what he's talking about. He talks about, he's talking about if this was a third world country, which I could turn it into in a second, then we would have had 2.5 to 5 million.
we'll put out the flames as it happens. We have to get the schools open. We have to get everything open. A lot of people don't want to do that for political reasons, not for...
A lot of people don't want to do it because they don't want kids to bring home a disease and kill their parents.
Other reasons.
That would be on the other reasons part, I guess. That would fall under the other reasons.
But if we had listened to Joe Biden, hundreds of thousands of additional lives would have been lost. And if you look at the job...
No, if you'd have listened to him, there would have been a comprehensive strategy along with travel bans and travel restrictions. You would have put tracking and tracing in place very early on, which is what Fauci recommended, which is what the CDC recommended, which is what you blew off and went golfing and had a rally with no masks.
Did on swine flu. I looked at a poll. They have polls on everything nowadays.
They have polls. He looked at it. So this is what your president is doing during this. So there's 138,000 dead Americans. There's going to be 200,000 easy by this fall. And what's he reading? What's he reading up on? Epidemiology? what the timelines for cures? Is he grinding at night, going, you know what? Secretly, I have this talent for developing antiviral treatments and cures. I'm good, honey. I can't go to bed right now. I've got to stay up and burn the midnight oil like Thomas Jefferson or Ben Franklin. I have to invent something that will solve this. No, he stays up late looking at polls on how Obama Biden looked during H1N1. Look, think of how pathetic your priorities would have to be that you would take up any of your time caring what anybody else politically thought about your predecessor on a disease that didn't shut down the government, that had a functioning antiviral and a functioning vaccine in place by December, even though it came out in May. Like, think how childish and weak and pathetic you would have to be to go, how did they look in the polls? To spend your time on that? To wake up in the middle of the night or up early in the morning? And by the way, I don't believe he looked at the polls. Somebody handed it to him. Probably Stephen Miller or one of Tucker Carlson's incel writers.
And they got very bad marks on the job.
They got bad marks. Release your grades from school. Because obviously this is a digging point. Release your grades. Because you keep saying bad marks. I mean, I understand using the phrase bad poll numbers or people didn't respect their response or some other phrasing on it. But bad marks is this weird grade school phrase that he keeps using.
They did on the swine flu. H1N1. He calls it N1H1. H1N1.
Yeah, it's terrible when
We're
people
honored
mess
to
up
have
words.
with us today our amazing Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wonderful wife, Carrot.
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
Got very poor marks from Gallup on the...
Oh, Gallup. So, okay, so we're going to take Gallup seriously then. Is that what's happening? Are we now? So we've established this at this point, right? Thank you, Melinda. Thanks, everybody, for the super chats today. I appreciate you guys being here, and thank you guys, the Patreon folks who bring this show to you every day. I appreciate you, and the rest of you just get to hang out and enjoy the chat and be with us. I appreciate you being here. And, of course, all the trolls and Trumpsters and wannabes. I'm sorry that that dear leader is decaying into a flatulating mass of graying orange gibberish right now. Sorry, it must be like the last few weeks of of Jonestown for you. I don't know quite how you're going to deal with it, but keep trying. You'll eventually somebody you can believe in will come into a position of power, like Ted Cruz or Rick Santorum, genuine tough guys.
They did on swine flu. And they stopped very early on testing. They totally stopped it. They just said stop.
They just said stop? They ordered the testing to stop on H1N1. Like, we don't want any testing. We're finding too many cases. Yeah, that's the case. Yeah, poor. If most of us who died during the H1N1 illness, I mean, we're still pissed off about it. I am, aren't you?
And frankly, if we didn't test, you wouldn't have all the headlines because we're showing cases.
You're showing that the positive rate is going up. The more you test, if you're generally testing the populace and the case rate is low, then the positive rate would stay would diminish as a percentage because of the volume of cases overall. You see how math can be fun, kids? That's right. If it's going up but the positive rate remains steady, that means there's a slight incline in the number of actual cases in the country, right? If it's static. See, but a bunch of these places like Arizona, the positive rate is going up higher than the rate of extra testing. So it will eventually overtake it to where everybody in the area will test positive if you don't get a handle on it, or those people don't just die and take a link out of the chain just by being dead.
Have just about the lowest mortality rate. But if we did, think of this, if we didn't do testing, instead of testing over 40 million people, if we did half the testing, we'd have half the cases. If we did another, you cut that in half.
Oh my God. He's going to try his own math now. Very, very exciting.
We'd have yet again half of that.
Half, and then the other half, and then there's twice as many of that half.
Always testing. Now, the testing is a good thing, but at the same time, it's fodder for the fake news to report cases. So we're doing 40 million plus.
Then talk about the positive rate versus the death rate. We now know that ventilators aren't the best treatment for it. We have a couple of antivirals, and don't say steroids, he'll say steroids again. But dexamethasone, if you use that, that's helpful. The UK figured that out. Remdesivir, the South Koreans figured that part out. We know that proning, putting people on their bellies, and we know that oxygenating their blood instead of using a ventilator is a better treatment for it. So the death rate will go down because of that. But there are a bunch of people who it's going to hit them so fast, so they're going to wait so long before they go to the hospital that they're going to overwhelm the medical system, and those people are going to die because they're going to have a lack of services available to them. So deal with that. If you think that the case rate is being inflated by the number of test rates, then why is the positive rate going up at the same rate as the test rate? It should be going down.
Be very close to 45 million people, and when I turn on the news, I see cases, cases, cases. They don't talk about deaths being cut down to a level that actually tenfold they use. I got that from one
in New York,
the very respected media outlets. Tenfold, cut tenfold. Death.
Right.
But they don't talk about that. They talk about...
No, but the reason is because, again, that number is going to go down. It's going to go down as you test more and more because of the positive rate. You're going to find more cases. That's going to go up. You're going to do more testing. So here's your testing early on. None, next to none, whatever. Then it starts to go up because you're testing more people. The number of positives should stay at a certain level like this and have a slight arc because it's not growing as much. If you're strategizing your testing, you're only really going to the areas where there's a decent number of cases. You're isolating those few people, and it doesn't expand. If it stays relatively high and floats right along, then you've got a handle on the cases. It's only slightly growing. If it arcs up where it's going to cross over, you're in deep shit. And a percentage of the number of people who are positive, which you didn't know effectively before, will tell you an effective number of the number of people dying from it. If you're finding more positive people and you're doing more testing, the percentage of the people dying compared to the testing will be tenfold drop. See how that works? And there's not a tenfold drop from the hospitalized to the dead. There's a tenfold drop from the number of positives tested to the drop. And we already know the majority of people will be asymptomatic. So as you broaden the number of dead, even if it's growing, will still putter along like this and just keep killing people. Look at the excess deaths. We're at 163,000 excess deaths for the year already.
Cases, and the cases are created because of the fact that we do tremendous testing. We're the best testing in the world. We now make ventilators for the world. We had very few ventilators.
Why was that? Oh, yeah, because you had, 18,000, 19,000 in storage, and you let the repair and maintenance contracts for them lapse? Why would you do that?
There isn't one person in any hospital anywhere in this country.
New York, they had to share a ventilator.
That needed
multiple people had to share ventilators in New York.
A ventilator that didn't get it. And that was because we mobilized to a level, using the Purchasing Act in some cases, we mobilized to a level that nobody thought.
The Purchasing Act? The Purchasing Act. He thinks it's the Purchasing Act. You mean the Defense Production Act? Where you force factories to produce things that are necessary for the country temporarily during times of war and great crisis. It's not the Purchasing Act.
possible.
You can buy whatever the hell you want in an emergency.
Nothing's happened like that since World War II. Our task force has done a great job.
God.
Mike Pence works so hard, it gets so little credit. Sad to see that, actually, but he works so.
Is it sad? Is it sad? What about Alex Azar? I mean, he was running the task force until March. You put him in charge in January, right after Biden released his op-ed. That's weird. You started a response team. You started the task force right after Biden put out his op-ed in January, and you put Alex Azar in charge of it. And then you went golfing, and you had some rallies, and then you caught a bunch of shit in the news, so you put Biden in charge. I mean, sorry, you put Biden. That would be good. You put Pence in charge. Why didn't you put him in charge in the beginning if you took it that seriously, if he was doing such a good job?
It gets so little credit. The governors would tell us we'd be on the
Told you guys I was tired. I'm working long hours. You'll get over it.
phone with 50 different governors. They'd all tell us what a great job. And
Yeah, because if they didn't say you were doing a great job, you would deny them ventilators and medical equipment. Why would you take... If you insist on yes men kissing your ass nonstop, why would you ever insist that the information you're getting is legit?
they'll go to the media and say, well, they didn't do such a good job. Well, we did a great job. We made a lot of governors look fantastic.
Oh, did you? Really? You mean California buying 200 million pieces of their own PPE and you including that number in the national purchasing order for the feds, even though you didn't buy it?
We did in New York. What we did in New York was one of the most incredible things. 2,800 bed in Javits Center, but the governor used very few of them, unfortunately. Then we moved in
Unfortunately?
a great hospital ship, one of our two great. We moved one also to Los Angeles. And we could have used that for our senior citizens. We could have used it for...
Wait a minute. You want to move senior citizens from senior care facilities onto a ship and then back again? People, elderly people, you want to pull them out of all over the state. That's the plan? Instead of isolating those places and setting up a perimeter where people coming and going are either tested or have to stay on site, which is where everybody eventually got to. Ask Inslee. Your big idea is to take elderly people, many of them bedridden, and put them on a boat for a couple of weeks and then take them off the boat. And if there's an outbreak on the boat, you can't move them. They're all in one spot.
Other people, they could have used it instead of sending our seniors back into nursing homes that were infected, where you lost thousands of people. Thousands of people in New York died because of poor management by the governor.
But I thought you just said you made him look good. How do we know those aren't just resources you denied them? They were worried about battening down the hatches in the major population areas like New York and keeping the economy from completely being decimated under your orders.
And it's a very sad thing to see and very sad to watch and very...
We made a lot of governors look very good. Here's a couple that look very bad because they're bad.
sad to look at those statistics, but we have an incredible Javits Center that we built with thousands of beds.
You didn't build the Javits Center. You set up cots.
I think it was 2,800,
Beds, yeah. We have them in storage. We're a big country.
all ready to go. And they could have sent people there,
We put in Murphy beds and lampshades. It was wonderful.
or they could have sent senior citizens there instead of sending them into the nursing homes. And
They were already in the nursing homes. They were making a call whether it was safer to move them or isolate those spaces. In a lot of cases, it had already gotten in. That's what happened in Inslee's case in Washington State.
after all of that work and getting it done, the Army Corps of Engineers, I mean, the job they did was incredible. They built it.
Yeah, they always do a great job under any president. It's the direction of what they've been told or asked to do. And denying Michigan some shit because you didn't like how you were spoken of in the press is the issue at hand. We don't blame the Army Corps of Engineers for not bringing shit to Michigan. We blame you and Pence for not sending it.
Matter of days. When it was all completed, FEMA, everybody was there, doctors. We ended up getting doctors. They said, we can't man it. I said, so we'll man it and woman it. And that's what we did.
Is that a phrase?
We brought in doctors, nurses, everything. Once it was reluctantly aroused. It was hard to get it aroused, and it is hard to get it aroused, but we got it aroused.
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
We're all set. We said, where are the people? They didn't send the people. Very few.
It's like he's pissed like he threw a party. He's like, the dip's starting to turn brown. I set out all these Oreos. I mean, they're a moment on the lips and a lifetime on the hips. I can't. You leave these plates out.
People came in. They could have sent them into the Javits Center. They could have sent them to the hospital ship, which was virtually unused, but we were there.
Yeah, they didn't ask for the ship. That was your insistence.
By contrast, my administration acted very early to ban travel.
The only thing you did was go out and wave bye-bye to the ship, which was, by the way, in dry dock getting repairs.
From China, from Europe, saving all of these lives. Incredible. And I want everyone to know, I want every citizen to know that we're using the full power of the federal government to fight the China virus and to keep our people safe.
And we're getting great marks for it. Way better than when H1N1 shut down the entire economy and 250,000 people died and we had to ban travel. And you remember, guys, during H1N1 when you guys were all staying indoors, we had to shut down schools.
Through Operation...
No, I don't remember any of that. We had Ebola in this country. It stopped at, what, 3 cases?
Warp speed, we will deliver a vaccine in record-breaking time. We're doing very well on the vaccines. We have many, many different vaccines being studied right now.
Yeah, worldwide. Everybody wants to be in on it. Every pharmaceutical company wants to be the one who comes up with this. It's the market. It's not you.
Many of which are looking really good. And we're ready to distribute the vaccine when we get it. We're all set. Taking a risk, an economic risk of preparing for delivery.
An economic risk. We're taking an economic risk. What's the economic risk? He's preparing to have the Army deliver a vaccine. The economic risk. At some point, there's going to be a vaccine, or there might be, in the future, a pandemic that requires syringes or the materials necessary to deliver a vaccine. One would think. You'd think. And if you don't need it right now, you could put it in storage until that time. But what he's talking about is the syringes, the needles, everything that you have to buy, the swabs, the alcohol, all the stuff that's in the process of every individual who gets the shot, whatever that shot may be. And what's the economic risk they're taking? That it might come as an oral as opposed to a shot. And so we've invested in a bunch of syringes, and in the end, you just drink something. That's it. The other thing is, and you know what the biggest economic risk is in this whole thing, is that the Army is going to be distributing this particular antiviral, whatever form it comes in, either as an oral dose or as a shot. And it's not going to be Democrats and libs that aren't going to take it. It's going to be his followers, all the QAnon nuts who think this is some sort of like New World Order plan to wipe out half the population. There is no frigging way Republicans are going to be the ones who line up behind these trucks in Walmart parking lots to get a shot given to them by somebody in army fatigues. Are you high? Please show me the Republicans and specifically the maggots, the Trump supporters who are going to line up. You're in the chat room. You've been, oh, my mic is getting this out. Sometimes I get very loud, But please, someone in the crowd who's, a maggot, I know you're out there. Please tell me you're going to line up behind an army truck to get a shot like it's the end of a very special episode of The Walking Dead. Never. Not ever. Thanks, Brian. They're not going to do it. Yeah, they won't wear masks. They're going to get a shot that's given to them by the government. I'm spending all this money trying to get our pandemic response aroused.
Once it was reluctantly aroused. It was hard to get it aroused, and it is hard to get it aroused, but we got it aroused.
And we're going to have to gather all these, see how many people per capita want the vaccine.
And you know, when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
Thank you, Amy. Yeah. Why would you line up behind a truck to get a shot for something that Fox News and this asshole tells you is a Democrat hoax? That it's way overblown. That is, yeah. They're not going to do it. If there's money wasted on this, it's going to be because your followers don't get the shot and kill their own families. That's right.
We feel very certain it's going to be there. But logistically, we have our military ready to go. We have generals. That's all they do is distribute things, and they're going to be distributed, hopefully.
We have generals, and that's all they do. General distribution. Hello, General. How are you? Handing out things, sir. Are you ready? Yes, sir. You give us all the syringes and some green goo, and we'll just inject it into everybody who will line up behind the truck. We're expecting you to talk to your followers, and at one of your rallies, we're going to do most of the inoculations at your rallies.
Vaccine or a therapeutic, and it's coming out really well. And I think you're going to have some good news very, very quickly having to do with the vaccines. We also...
Yeah, you've been saying that since there was 15 cases and it was going to go down to 0, and it was just one lady, and she was just she had the sniffles. And, by the way, it was a guy, and he died.
Many other countries on the vaccine.
Thank you, domestic.
Many countries are working with us.
And on their own.
Unleashing our nation's scientific genius to kill the virus.
And we're trying to buy a German antivirus team to pay them for the vaccine that they were coming up with.
Joe Biden didn't just side with China on the
we went back to China?
virus. He did. He called me again xenophobic.
Yeah, right. Because all you wanted to do was keep non-resident visa-holding Chinese human beings out, and you cursed Nancy Pelosi for trying to get people to recognize that Chinese people weren't the problem genetically, racially, that it was something that traveled from overseas. And most of the cases, by the way, that came into the country from, on the East Coast came through Europe, because your ban did not apply to anybody flying to another country.
What he said, you all heard it many times. He described the rise of China as, quote, a very positive development. Not a positive development. Not for us.
Not if you want 100 million dead Chinese.
It's not. He said that the idea that China is our
So you mitigate the growth so it's not overwhelming, and of course you take care of your own country, but you don't fight against people. Thank you, Cassie. You don't fight against people trying to feed their own people. Ask Xi. He's your best friend.
competition is really bizarre. He's really bizarre. He said China's not a problem. No. Nobody's ripped us off more than China
The Chinese people aren't the problem.
over the last 25, 30 years.
You got $300 million in loans from China.
Pretty close. And he says
Tell me about devalued currency.
China's not a problem. Now he takes it all back now. Now he wants to be Mr. Tough Guy. But
So what were you? Did you start out as Mr. Tough Guy and then you just default back to whiny, flatulent old fart? Is that what we're doing?
for years, 47 years, he never
Thank
came
you.
out against China, never said anything bad, just the opposite. His son walked out with $1.5 billion of money.
The company that he joined in 2017 got that money in 2014. But tell us about Ivanka's trademarks.
To invest where he'll make hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars a year. Walked out with $1.5 billion. I asked one of the biggest people on Wall Street, maybe the biggest.
Really? Who was that person? The biggest person on Wall Street? Do we look it up? Let's see. I'm gonna have to try and find this one. Where do we look this up anyway? Biggest person on Wall Street. Who's the John Paulson? He's one of the 6 highest paid people. He created 2 hedge funds dedicated to betting against subprime mortgages. He made money on the 2008 crash. He's one of the few people. He made $5 billion in 2010. He's pretty big. He used to work for Bear Stearns. They're good people. Lovely. It wasn't Warren Buffett, because Warren doesn't talk to Trump, apparently. James Simons, maybe? He was worth $10.6 billion in 2011. He stepped down from day-to-day operations in 2009 at 72, but he's still... he devotes his time to supporting autism research and providing stipends to New York City math teachers through his Math for America. No, Trump definitely doesn't talk to him. Ray Dalio, 61-year-old founder and CEO and CIO of Bridgewater Associates, world's largest hedge fund. This guy runs the world. Let's see. His company boasting a 45% return on investments for a $15 million windfall. He made, from $3 million he invested in 2010. Made his first investment at age 12. Invested $300 into the stock in Northeast Airlines. And he got his MBA from Harvard Business School. Maybe him. I don't know. It could have been any of those guys, but not Warren Buffett. And what did that person say about China and the economic... Understand, by the way, that China has 1.4 billion people, so this is like $1 for every person in the country.
Is that possible? He said no. He's never seen it. They don't do that.
Then where did it go? If they don't do it, then how was it done?
But Hunter, where's Hunter? Where is Hunter, by the way? Hunter Biden.
Where's Eric?
Walked out with 1.5
Why won't you let Eric talk? Why will you not bring Eric up to the podium? What is Eric hiding?
billion.
Why? What's Tiffany's middle name?
In Ukraine, he got $83,000 a month, and I guess an upfront payment of $3 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to shepherd $500 million in investment. By the way, the pipeline that they were building, Burisma. By the way, do you hear any more about Burisma being the most corrupt company in the country in Ukraine? See, it was, and now it isn't. So before Hunter Biden's investment group came in, one of the most, I suppose, worldwide corrupt oil and gas companies on earth. After, not corrupt anymore, functioning, actually building pipelines. A pipeline, by the way, that will service Europe and compete with Russia. Now, why would anybody want to undermine the Ukrainian pipeline being finished and supplying Europe with oil and gas in competition with Russia? Why would anybody be against that? Who would be against such a thing? Who in the world would prefer that Europe get its oil and gas from Putin and not from... Thank you, Rob Glenn. Bless you. How are you? Who? I can't think of anybody. Can you guys think of anybody who would rather have Putin make that money than the Ukrainians?
So he went from not having a job to getting $83,000.
Did you see Don Jr.'s arrest report for drunk driving? He was unemployed when he was busted for drunk driving. He was definitely old enough to work. I don't know what the hang-up was.
$1 a month with a lot of money paid up front to work for Burisma. And you all know about Burisma.
Yeah, they used to be one of the most corrupt oil and gas companies in the world. Now they're not.
But nothing happens. Nobody cares.
Oh boy. Come on.
And he was unemployed, as you know. He was
It's a sad story. I wish I had some piano music right now.
unfortunately forced to leave the military. He was forced to leave. Didn't have a job, and all of a sudden he's making a fortune.
It's really the American dream if you think about it. Are we gonna talk about people who bootstrap themselves? Are you just gonna take a shit on anybody who used to have an addiction and got their life straightened out and actually became a business success? I mean, it's understood. Like, obviously, Biden had a foot up on other people. You know, he wasn't. You know, his dad was born. You know, he was a millionaire already. His grandfather had paid Biden $300,000 a month since he was 12 years old as a tax scheme. And of course, together, Biden and Hunter refused to let black people rent apartments in buildings that they owned. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's your family.
But nobody talks about that. Indeed.
Yeah, they do talk about it. They're like, hey, got his life in order. Give it a shot. You're just jealous somebody else is actually making money.
Biden expressed more fawning praise about China on an ordinary day than about America.
Oh, really? Was he part of the group of Republican senators that spent the 4th of July in Russia last year?
The 4th of July, the last Independence Day, Biden attacked the United States and said we had, quote, never lived up to the ideals of our fathers, our forefathers, or our founding fathers.
Whatever it says on the paper. Yeah, we haven't. We're a work in progress. We still can. Why is the press there? Apparently just to get them all skin cancer. This is, have any of us lived up to our potential in life? This is only a person who thinks he's doing better than anybody else in the world and that anyone could ever expect him to do would think this way.
Ideals, and yet he enthusiastically stated that China is a great nation and we should hope for its continued expansion. Well, we all wish well to China, but
no, not its expansion, its success. And you just said that earlier in the speech. Thanks, Templeton. Absolutely. It's a good group of people, and we're lucky to have you.
What China's unleashed on the world, it's...
You mean your phase 1 or phase 2 of your deal?
It's hard to even fathom.
Yeah, if they hadn't given you $300 million in loans, you would have been clearly in bankruptcy, so much so that you would have never been able to run for president. So what they unleashed onto the world is just...
See people now, friends of mine, they walk up, they want to say hello, and they have to keep their distance, and they're all...
It might be your aftershave.
Covered up, like you're all covered up with face masks.
For the first time in their...
We're coming out on top. Biden sides with China over America time and time again.
I'm surprised he's not running to be president of China. If you like China so much, Biden, why don't you marry it?
And he said on the 4th of July, America...
Flying Doodle, I think it was 6 Republicans spent the 4th of July in Moscow last year.
History is no fairy tale. And yet,
yeah, it's not a fairy tale. It's a reality. We deal with reality. We're okay with complexity. We love our flag and our country and our system of government. We know it needs improvement all the time. That's what makes us different from dictatorships, monarchies, theocracies especially.
Blindly celebrates China, saying few nations in history have come so far, so fast. He's so proud of them.
But it's true. They actually have. And the way they've done it is by being a part of a capitalist market. China is more of a capitalist country than we are. They have more unregulated capitalism in their country than we do. It's the Wild West in a bunch of ways. The government over there cannot even control how out of control the markets are. That's why they buy into a large section of these companies that are over there, because if they don't have a controlling financial interest, they would never be able, they wouldn't be able to get in the door.
He's so proud of them. Now Joe Biden is pushing a platform that would demolish the U.S. economy, totally demolish it.
Yeah, that's what he's going to do. It's just, yeah, Biden is the big commie you have to fear.
So we built the greatest economy in the history of our country.
By we mean the Obama administration, after the Great Recession, righting the economy and making it functional again. By the way, you were against all the bailouts, which ended up paying off. The Fed made money on them, including the auto bailouts, which gave money to Tesla, which you were also against. But now you're kissing Elon's ass.
The greatest in the history of the world. That was a few months ago. Best unemployment.
The largest deficit by double. More military spending than any time in history.
Numbers ever. Best for African American, Asian American, Hispanic American. Best for
numbers that were continually going up since 1991.
Women, best for everybody. Best for young people that didn't have a high school diploma, didn't have a college diploma. They had a diploma, they were really in good shape.
Everybody.
Built the greatest ever. Stock market highest ever in history. We had 143 days of all-time stock market highs.
It's amazing how if you just kind of like spend money and dump money into the economy, it'll continue to grow. It's almost like a self-growing garden. Meanwhile, if you scuttle the pandemic response team over the fact that your predecessor started it and it cost $23 million, the whole thing gets ruined. Who knew that the economy you built was so easily broken?
Less than 3.5 years. And we had to close it down because we did the right thing by doing that. As I said, we saved millions of lives. But China was saying, this is incredible what's going on. China was for the first time respecting the United States. And
were they now? The ink wasn't even dry when, according to you, they released a bioweapon into our country.
Now they want to do something that's much different, Joe Biden. So I've watched this, and I've watched it with...
What does he want to do? What?
Great
Oh, that's awesome. We're getting close to 300 patrons. That's so awesome. Thanks, Can't Stop Lying. Our goal is 500. If you can be one, then join us. Thank you guys so much. And thanks again to Cassie, and a couple of others have raised their level. I appreciate you guys. Amazing.
We're building our economy again. I guess the stock market went up almost 500 points today or something thereabouts. You'll check, but it was up a lot.
Yeah, and it went down 500 yesterday, and it'll go up 500 again. It's all volatility. That's why literally, even though you would be tax-wise one of the most pro-business politicians that has ever lived, just totally like unrestrained Wall Street, if you could get back to credit default swaps, no taxes, everything. They still don't want you because you've thrown the whole system into such a cocked hat. They can't actually plan for anything.
Not when I left. And our economy is coming back. We're almost at a level where, even though it's long before the very important, maybe the most important ever, election of November 3rd.
We're electing November 3rd, are we?
We're long before that, but we're close to record stock markets again, and NASDAQ hit an all-time high for the 16th time. Think of that, for the 16th time, over the last month or so, for the 16th time.
Yeah, and we're at 15% unemployment. You might want to notice that the stock market is more than happy when companies start jettisoning workers. Is this a surprise to anybody? You're kidding, right? Literally, most of the... Okay, there are tons of stocks that are pumping right now. If it wasn't for the big six, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, there's three others. If it wasn't for those main six, the stock market investment would have been completely flat for the last decade. Flat. No growth. None. Everything else is just fights up and down all the time. There's no guarantee. You would have been safer in a low yield savings account. half of these, and one of the big reasons why these other the companies that are at the top, like Apple, because everybody needs a smartphone to live, essentially. The other ones are Amazon and Walmart, and the ones where you're ordering food at home or buying the cheapest stuff you can in the biggest amount of bulk, which does not point to a healthy economy. It's like, look at all the, you can tell somebody has great self-esteem by, look at all the money they're spending on themselves. Well, if they're getting a facial reconstructive surgery and a nose job and a tummy tuck, then that's not about how good they feel about themselves. It's the exact opposite. It points to a greater negative issue. Just because the money's being spent, it matters where the money is being spent and why.
So one of our markets already hit an all-time high. Today,
yeah, and so has unemployment.
Joe Biden gave a speech in which he said that the...
That's why he's out here. This is 100% why we're having to live through this. Biden... Yeah, Zoom is absolutely making money.
Core of his economic agenda is a hard left crusade against American energy. He wants to kill American energy.
Does he? He wants to kill it. That's what he's for? Because he wants us to be the clean energy capital of the world.
He wants to re-enter the unfair, one-sided Paris Climate Accord, which will destroy us, at the expense of many other nations who benefit. It was actually drawn, in my opinion, to take advantage of the United States, just like so many other deals are done to...
Well, it might be that you have a myopic view of everything you don't understand. You're just suspicious of it. Essentially, that's why you have, whatever, 2,500 LLCs for every project that you have.
Take advantage of the fools running the United States.
I thought, are you going to talk about how the ink wasn't even dry on phase one of a three-phase trade deal when we got hit with a bioweapon that apparently you let in?
This would do nothing for the environment, but would cripple American industry while greatly...
What do I call TikTok? TikTok is malware. Get it off your phone.
...helping China. He wants to impose massive energy taxes and job-crushing mandates to eliminate carbon from the United States economy. Let him define the word carbon, because he won't...
Trump doesn't know what carbon is.
...be able to. Obliterating American oil.
Nobody's going to eliminate carbon. We're carbon-based life forms, dipshit. You want to eliminate like fluorocarbons and carbon output into the atmosphere caused by factories and car exhaust.
Clean coal, natural gas.
Clean coal. And there you have it. Thank you, Gary. Thank you so much. Clean coal. We're back 3.5 years in. We're at clean coal. If coal is so clean, then why haven't you cleaned it so far? Why isn't...
And the natural energy resources that supply countless
supply
American jobs.
Yeah, you don't think people will have jobs in clean energy? That's the point of a Green New Deal concept. That's what they're talking about, being on the forefront of clean energy and the jobs that will come from that. Because eventually you're going to run out of fossil fuels to use, and you're going to want to have something, you want to be at the forefront, you want to be the early adopter. 80-20 rule, whoever's first in the market gets 80% of the market. We've won as a country largely because of that over the years. That, and of course, in World War II, most of the factories in Europe were bombed into nothingness, and we were the only people making washing machines for a while. That helped.
Joe Biden put AOC, a young woman, not talented in many ways.
A young woman not talented in many ways. I don't know. I've seen her dance. She's pretty good. She's a decent public speaker. She's hell of a campaigner. Went door to door. Went to every single door in her district, I think, which was one of the ways she won.
Charge of his energy plan and the environment, essentially. Her and Bernie Sanders, who ran a lot of times for president, never made it.
See that, Sanders?
Good base, but that's about it.
Good base, but that's about it.
In other words, he wants to impose the Green New Deal on our country. When I first saw the Green New Deal, I thought it was a joke. I said,
Oh, yeah?
this will never go anywhere. Now they're trying to impose it. This will destroy our country.
They're trying to impose it. You do realize we have to pass bills in this country. Do you realize there's a process that you implement?
And make us non-competitive with other
Aren't we trying to compete in the jobs of tomorrow?
countries. Don't forget, we're in competition with China and with...
Right. Largely in the clean energy sector. Unless you want to be Venezuela to their being the United States.
the other countries throughout the world. We're in tremendous economic competition, including Europe, which has never treated us well.
Oh, Europe, you never treated us well. France, I don't even know why we name things after Lafayette. France, you've just been terrible to us ever since the Revolutionary War, when we wouldn't be a country without you. Europe's always been so mean to us. First of all, I'm sure he doesn't include Deutsche Bank in there. Deutsche Bank must be on its own or whatever, but that's also filtered Russian money, we understand. So there's a reason why Trump is pissed at both American banks and European banks, because they won't loan him money. Only Russian and Chinese banks have loaned him cash over the years. And I do mean cash because it's operating costs. It's not loans to purchase properties that, are good investments. It's, we're finding out, of course, that his Scottish golf course is a money laundering operation.
The European Union was formed in order to take advantage of the United States. They formed, and they take advantage of the United States. And I know that. They know I know that.
And you know that I know that. Hamana.
Other presidents had no idea.
They had no idea that Europe was full of all these subversives.
Last week, Joe Biden...
While they were busy fighting Russia, Belgium and France and Germany and Norway and Spain and UK all snuck up on him.
Released his unity platform developed with socialist Bernie Sanders, describing what he would do if elected president. The Biden-Sanders agenda is the most extreme platform of any major party nominee by
That has to be true because I underlined it.
far in American history. I think it's worse than actually Bernie's platform. It's gone so far right. And he's doing that because he's...
It went far right? Wait a minute, what? Did he accidentally admit that Bernie's to the left of Biden, therefore Biden would be to the right of Bernie, and that's what he's
begging for that vote. But one of
begging for that vote? No, he's building a coalition and he's kicking your
the
ass.
things I just asked my people to do is just draw up for me, just quickly, some of the things that we've been hearing about over the last couple of weeks.
Here's something we've been hearing about. 138,000 dead Americans. Go on that.
And these are actual key elements of the Biden-Sanders unity platform.
Okay, go for it.
Abolish immigration detention. No more detention. You come in here illegally, no more detention.
No. When you come in, you go to a holding facility. That's temporary. But then you are either deported once you go through the legal process, or if you're right on the border, you can be put back, which is what the Obama administration did. The long-term holding of people is the thing we want to get rid of, because people die in there, and we as a country, we're better than that.
Stop all...
Basically, the imprisoning of illegal immigrants for long periods of time is what they want to put an end to.
deportation. So if we get a MS-13 gang member, which we've taken out of our country by...
What? They don't have a plan for no deportations.
Thousands, brought them back to Honduras, Guatemala, Can't do that anymore. El Salvador. Can't do that anymore. Stop all deportations. In other words, we'll take all of these people, many of.
Yeah, that was what happened during the Obama-Biden years. That's what's to be expected. Everybody comes in. We don't even have an immigration plan anymore. It's just open borders. We're not sending anybody back. Like, what are you talking about? I mean, it's one thing to like, they're going to let in, tens of millions of people because they're going to be so lax in there. You can make up something that is still bullshit, but sounds at least remotely plausible. Are you drunk? We're not deporting anyone.
Are in prison for rape, murder, lots of other things.
What?
No more detention. Stop all deportations. So if we get a MS-13 gang member, which we've taken out of our country by the thousands, brought them back to Honduras, Guatemala. Can't do that anymore.
No.
El Salvador. Can't do that anymore. Stop all deportations. In other words, we'll take all of these people, many of whom are in prison for rape, murder, lots of other things, and prosecution of illegal border crossers. Oh, okay.
Wait, so if you're going to... So somebody's in jail for rape or murder. You've tried them on American soil. You either don't have the resources, or you choose not to release those folks into, no bail, no nothing. You're holding on to those folks. And the Trump plan would be to put these folks on a plane and fly them to their country and just drop them off, whether the country accepts them or not. Just fly a plane down there, everybody out. Con Air, everybody out the hatch. Get out. Well, if they got in the country once before, what makes you think they can't get back in? They obviously have connections. So wouldn't you rather have them in a cell where you know where they are until such time as you have the country, you have some sort of setup with them where they go back? And if it's someplace like Venezuela where you're buddies with the leader, why won't they take them back? What's the problem with you as a leader?
They come in illegally, and we have to stop the whole process. Support the deadly sanctuary cities where many of these people are protected better than the American citizen is protected.
That would be impossible.
Incentivize illegal alien child smuggling. Give it an...
You'd incentivize it. You're going to incentivize. This is their plan. They're putting incentives in, a dollar amount. What is it? Is this a George Soros kind of a thing? They're going to incentivize child smuggling. Let's see. How could you incentivize child? I know it's hard, Steve. How could you incentivize child smuggling? Oh, one of the ways you could do it is set up a system where 800 or so children in a single 6-month period are separated from their families, placed with people where they keep no records, and 200 of them go missing. I mean, if you were a child sex trafficker and you had a connection in the White House, you knew somebody who knew somebody who was in there, or you'd been at a party with somebody who was in the White House, let's say, and 200 kids just went missing. You didn't even keep track of them. You weren't even bothering to keep track of the children that were separated. You could do whatever you want with those couple hundred kids, right? Right?
Incentive. Because if you look at what they're saying, that's exactly what they do.
Oh, yeah? How does it work? Explain it to us.
Incentivize illegal alien child smuggling. They're incentivized by what this plan calls for.
Okay. It incentivizes it. So what's the incentive? They get a coupon?
Expand asylum for all new illegal aliens. How about that one? All new illegal aliens. Expand asylum. Cancel
No.
all asylum cooperation agreements.
This is literally like a branch hitting a window in a windstorm, and an old man in the house explaining how that's a ghost outside. There's a witch on a broomstick smacking against the glass. There's a murder of crows trying to get in the house. It's a branch. It's the same branch. It's a branch. You have to deal with it. We probably have to trim it so it doesn't break the window eventually, but it's a branch. No, it isn't. It's a pterodactyl.
In the Western Hemisphere, well, we have agreements with Honduras,
Yeah, Sarah Cooper is going to be exhausted by the end of this.
Guatemala,
Mexican crinkle.
with El Salvador. We have great agreements where when Biden and Obama used to bring killers out, they would say, don't bring them back to our country. We don't want them. Well, we have to. We don't want them. They wouldn't take them. Now with us, they take them. Someday I'll tell you why. Someday I'll tell you why.
Why? Because we threatened to bomb them? What's the reasoning? Thanks so much, Jimmy Stylen. What's the reasoning? Say it. Are we threatening them? Is that the only way you're doing it? Is that why other presidents haven't done it? Because we weren't threatening to nuke them or something? Are we parking subs off of El Salvador? Just say it. If it's a legit plan.
But they take them, and they take them very gladly. They used to bring them out, and they wouldn't even let the airplanes land if they brought them back by airplanes. They wouldn't let the buses into their country. They said, we don't want them.
What'd they do? Shoot them out of the sky? Does anybody remember during the Obama-Biden years when a plane was full of MS-13 gang members being returned to El Salvador was shot out of the sky rather than let it land? What?
Said, no, but they entered our country illegally, and they're murderers, they're killers in some cases.
But we have a whole plane load of them. They're murderers and killers, and so we just wanted to drop them off. Yeah. No. We're not going to give you the evidence that they're murderers and killers so that you can prosecute them. We're just going to drop them off. You have to trust us on this. Yeah. What do you mean I can't land? What do you mean they need ID to prove they're from El Salvador? They're brown. Look at them. They look El Salvadoran. They said they wanted to go to El Salvador. We asked. We had like 15 of them. Hello? He's not answering anymore. Put us on autopilot.
And they said, nope, we don't want them.
No, you got to take them. You don't understand. I know you don't want them. We don't want them either. They're your people. No, I don't have proof. They look El Salvadoran. Yeah. No, they're documents. They have documents. Yeah. No, I don't know if they're real. I didn't check. I asked. Can we land or not? What do you mean no because of Obama? What does that mean?
Turned the bus around, they turned the plane around, and they landed.
Sorry guys, we're going back to Guatemala. You guys are gonna have to get out. Next stop, Guatemala. Everybody off for Guatemala. Yeah. This is our last time to take a piss before we get to El Salvador. Cool. All right.
The United States, and who knows what happened to them.
Yeah, who knows? These buses and planes disappeared out of the sky.
But it wasn't good. Tax.
Oh, no, it wasn't good. These imaginary planes, it was like the Bermuda Triangle of illegal immigration. We had planes full of El Salvadoran MS-13 gang members. Poof, they were gone. I think it was the Loch Ness Monster.
Taxpayer-funded lawyers will be given to all illegal aliens. So we're going to pay now for the lawyers' lobby, and we're going to give all illegal aliens taxpayer-funded lawyers. How does that sound? Pretty good? In other words,
we have lawyers that process their immigration status for asylum seekers. It's for asylum seekers. There's a difference between people. And by the way, a judge hears you and they go, no, you're just an economic migrant. You don't have a right to be here. Go home. And then they deport you. That's how it works. But if you're seeking asylum and you have reasoning and proof, you get an attorney because we have an immigration policy. By the way, you could pass comprehensive immigration reform right now. It would go right through the House and through the Senate. You could sign it. It has a lot of this stuff in it that would solve a bunch of these things, but then you wouldn't get to vilify it through the election and people would recognize it's just a managing problem.
Come in here illegally. We're going to give you free legal advice. We'll take you up to the Supreme Court as much as possible.
Yeah, just to get, they're gonna have a bunch of people. They're just gonna get okay. Who here is from El Salvador? This is your last chance to see the SCOTUS. They're hearing arguments today on I think it's pornography if you get in there for the early session. But then the rest of the day it's abortion. You know, yeah, it's all abortion all the time there. That's it, and occasionally gun stuff. But these days, yeah, there's not a lot of gun argument. They're kicking the NRA out of there faster than you can shake a stick at them, which is probably what they're going to be left doing. You know, 'cause they want, yeah. Anyways, you guys have fun. I'll be waiting out here. When you're done, I'll take you back to El Salvador if that's where you're from.
Abolish immigration enforcement against illegal workers. Think of that. Abolish immigration enforcement. They're going to abolish immigration enforcement. Well, basically, as you know, what they're going to do is
No, they want to abolish ICE as a force, not immigration enforcement.
to rip down the wall. They're taking it down. They want to take down the wall,
What wall?
which we fought hard for. We're up to 259 miles right now of great, powerful wall.
Great, powerful wall that only costs $1.85 to build a ladder that goes over it, and you can climb it in 35 seconds. It's better than it's easier to climb than the part that was there
It's
before.
really working because if you look at the numbers, in addition to the fact that Mexico, for various reasons, has 27,000 soldiers on our southern border to keep people out of our country. And I appreciate it. We had a great meeting last week with the president of Mexico, great guy. Friend of mine, become a friend of mine. A lot of people thought that couldn't happen because
Because of the stuff you say about Mexicans?
very opposite in
Like-
terms of our views, maybe even in terms of our temperament. But he's a great guy, and he's a friend of
Your temperament. Are you both nuts?
mine, and they've been terrific. Mexico has been terrific.
Both of you are trying to keep, both of you want to close your border. You because you don't like Mexicans, except when they work cheaply for your big ag friends in southern states. And him because we have more cases than they do, and we're bringing COVID into his country.
27,000 soldiers on our border, Mexican soldiers.
Mexican soldiers.
And we have great,
Yeah, keeping U.S. citizens from coming across and spreading the disease.
great numbers. We get rid of so many different things. Catch and release is gone. So many different things.
What do you think you do? What do you think it is when you catch someone and then you take them back to their country, drop them off just over the border, and they sneak back in?
Have taken place. We used to catch them, take their name, and release them into our country. We don't do that anymore. We now release them back where they came from. Sometimes we'll bring them back to their country. Grant work permits for illegal aliens. So if you come in illegally, you get a work permit. People that
No. They want E-Verify. If you're going to have migrant workers, they won't be illegal anymore. They'll just live across the border in their own country, come over, work, and go home. That used to be the standard.
live here don't get work permits in many cases. Provide taxpayer subsidies and welfare for illegal aliens and new immigrants. So we want to provide taxpayer subsidies and welfare for people that come into our country illegally. Illegal.
We're going to start subsidizing illegal immigration. And what does that do to the legal immigrants? So we're not going to subsidize that. So we've decided to work against them. It sounds like they're trying to legalize a bigger chunk of immigration to me. But it sounds like also you don't understand that.
Immigrants.
And then when people come over, if you legalize migrant workers and then they go home when they're done, either if they work here for a few months or if they go literally across the border during the day and then go home at night because they live in another country, if you're going to bring in those workers or whatever, you would give them legal protections while they're on your soil that are limited and require some legal work to be done. You can't write the bills with crayons and hammers like you need to do. You got to figure this stuff out. And I don't know why he thinks this yet.
They want government health care for all illegal aliens.
No, we want to make sure that people don't spread a contagion. And if you don't let people go in and get checked for a disease like COVID, and you can't drum them out, or you can't ask people for what their immigration status is because of the law. You want them to be able to come in and get checked for contagious diseases so they don't spread them to everybody else.
This is part of their plan. I'm not making this up. This is all.
Yes, you are. This is you. Again, this is a branch banging against the window, and you think it's a witch.
Their plan from last week.
Yeah, just like your plan to inject bleach into the lungs of people and shove light bulbs up their ass to get light inside the body because it has a very curative effect. I don't think any illegal Mexican or El Salvadoran immigrants snuck into the VA and poured hydroxychloroquine down the throats of comatose VA veterans in the VA and watched them die.
And this is good compared to what I heard today.
Is it? Well, then why didn't you bring up that stuff? It sounds like you're for this all of a sudden. I'm going to guess that variations of what you're talking about, even though this is villainous, psychotic language, variations of the programs that you're trying to make look horrible are in the comprehensive immigration plan that even Republicans would vote for right now that would stabilize a lot of this problem. And even you know that, which is why you just said that.
Federal student aid and free community college for illegal aliens. What do you think about that? Federal student aid and free community.
You mean the DACA recipients?
College. We're going to have every person in the world pouring into our country from all over the world. And by the way, the wall was so timely because it stopped people coming in from heavily infected areas.
Yeah, that's the thing you have most in common with the president of Mexico right now, because that's what he's saying. Thank God that there's a barrier between our countries because these Americans would be bringing this disease down
Mexico.
here. Yes, there are reporters in the audience.
If we had that, we would be in trouble like you wouldn't believe. You wouldn't believe. And remember, cases is different than deaths. And cases we give you because our testing is the best in the world. And by the way, by far the most. 45 million. Find out which country tested 45 million people. If China...
are we going for per capita again? Is that what...
And you know, when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
Yeah, but what about the immigrants?
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
If Russia, if India tested 45 million people, or if they did tests like we did, check out how many cases they'd have.
Yeah, I don't live there. I live here. Are you arguing for a lower standard? And again, the positive rate is the indicator, not the overall number of tests. We should be testing huge swaths because we're tracking and tracing. We just happen to have to track and trace a lot more cases because you went golfing and had rallies.
But it's still, we've done a great job, get no credit for it, and I don't want the credit. I want the people that have done this great job, the people that have done such an incredible job on building the ventilators and doing the testing and building a testing platform that's been amazing. We have many platforms. Many companies have come up with different forms of tests. When we started, there was no such thing.
There was no such disease.
I knew immigrants up for welfare immediately. This is Joe Biden. So they walk off and they come in and they put a foot into our land and we sign up new immigrants up for welfare. We sign them up immediately.
Okay, so here's Biden's immigration plan. You want to hear what Biden's actual immigration plan is? Anybody interested? It's on his website. You can go look, joebiden.com. Where you can actually support the campaign if you want to donate and get a button and all that fun stuff. He supports the 2013 immigration bill pretty much across the board. It's normal. Then his first 100 days action points are immediately reverse the Trump administration's cruel and senseless policies that separate parents from their children at our border. So reunifying families. End Trump's detrimental asylum policies. Statue of Liberty has long been a beacon to people yearning to breathe free, including asylum seekers and refugees, but the Trump administration has worked against this tradition to drastically restrict access asylum access to asylum in the U.S., including imposing additional restrictions on anyone traveling from Mexico or Guatemala attempting to prevent victims of gang or domestic violence from receiving asylum, systematically prosecuting adult asylum seekers for misdemeanor illegal entry, which is what the zero tolerance policy was, which is why the separation. In the mismanagement of the asylum system, which fuels violence and chaos at the border, Trump's disastrous policy of metering, limiting the number of asylum applications accepted each day, forces people seeking asylum to wait on the streets in often dangerous Mexican border towns for weeks before they are permitted to apply, surge humanitarian resources to the border, and foster public-private initiatives, meaning NGOs, non-governmental organizations, end prolonged detention and reinvest in case management program. That's what he's talking about with, they want to give everybody a lawyer. Right. Reverse Trump's public charge rule, which runs counter to our values as Americans and the history of our nation, allowing immigration officials to make an individual ability to receive a visa or gain permanent resident status contingent on their use of government services such as SNAP. So if they ever used them, like Paul Ryan used Social Security to go to college, he wouldn't have been able to become a citizen. He became the Speaker of the House. And the so-called national emergency that siphons federal dollars from the Department of Defense to build the wall, because he couldn't get it. He's like, they don't bug me about the wall anymore. And it's because you lost. Protect dreamers and their families. DACA. Rescind the un-American travel and refugee bans, also referred to as the Muslim bans. Order an immediate review of the temporary protection status for vulnerable populations who cannot find safety in their own countries ripped apart by violence or disaster. Trump administration's politically motivated decision to rescind protected status for hundreds of thousands of people fleeing countries impacted by war and natural disasters without regard for current country conditions is a recipe for disaster. Biden will protect TPS and defer enforced departure, the DED holders, from being returned to their countries that are unsafe. This is for children and migrants who are escaping war zones and the like, helping to stabilize them, working with NGOs to get them replaced in either neighboring countries. It's something we've done forever. Like, all of this has been, like, until you hear about it, you're like, look, when did that start? 40 years ago. Restore sensible enforcement priorities, ensure that immigration and customs enforcement and customs border protection personnel abide by professional standards and are held accountable for inhumane treatment. So this is abolish ICE, according to Trump. Ensure that immigration, customs enforcement, which ICE, which I guess you couldn't ensure they behave a certain way if they no longer exist. So obviously ICE is sticking around. And Customs and Border Patrol, CBP, personnel abide by professional standards and are held accountable for inhumane treatment, just like cops, whatever. Protect and expand opportunities for people who risk their lives in military service. This is where Trump is denying people who served in the military as a way to get their citizenship, taking that away, basically restoring and reaffirming that. Restore and defend the naturalization process for green card holders, people who've had green cards and who've been working here for a long time, who are working their way to citizenship, making sure that they get a shot. Revitalize the task force on new Americans and boost our economy by prioritizing integration, promoting immigrant entrepreneurship, and increasing access to language instruction and promoting civil engagement. So if people are going to come in, and we have communities of color across the country, especially from Spanish-speaking countries and the like, or foreign-speaking countries, we help them adapt and learn English. God forbid. Convene a regional meeting of leaders, including from El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, and Canada, to address the factors driving migration, to propose a regional resettlement solution. That's the last one on the list. I don't think Trump's going to be bringing this up anytime soon.
They get welfare benefits. United States citizens don't get what they're looking to give illegal immigrants.
Yes, they
Think
do.
of that. Sign up. It's hard to believe I'm even reading that.
Because you made it up. Because Stephen Miller wrote that on a piece of paper and you're dumb enough to believe it.
Immigrants for welfare immediately.
Immediately. That's what it had. Help them process it. You know what happens if you try to sign up for welfare and you don't qualify? They tell you you don't qualify. Why would it make it better if you signed up immediately upon crossing the border? And by the way, if you get them, it limits your ability to get citizenship.
Not to
right.
mention the cost of this, which is incalculable. The cost of this
it would be calculable.
This is so crazy. End requirement for immigrant self-sufficiency and maximize their welfare. Now, this is us writing this. Who's not coming to the United States? Every person from South America is going to pour in. Every person from other countries, they're going to be pouring in. End requirement, think of that, for immigrant self-sufficiency. And remember to maximize welfare. So we're giving a maximum.
Let's see. What's his plan? Joe Biden will work with Congress to pass legislation that A, creates a roadmap to citizenship for nearly 11 million people who've been living in and strengthening our country for years, so the 11 million that are already here, coming out of the shadows. Reforms the visa program for temporary workers in selected industries so they can come and go back to their own countries. Reforms the temporary visa program. High-skilled temporary visas should not be used to disincentivize recruiting workers already in the U.S. for in-demand occupations. Well, that's weird. So Biden's immigration plan is to, the HB1 visas that they use to hire high-tech workers from outside the country to give them jobs that Americans should be in line for? That's weird. I don't know why Trump didn't bring that up in his list of things that Biden wants to do. Provides a path to legalization for agricultural workers who have worked for the years on U.S. farms and continue to work in agriculture. These are people who are already here, that we want their farms here. Rejects the false choice between employment-based and family-based immigration. Preserves preference for diversity in the current systems. Trump has set his sights on abolishing the diversity visa lottery, this program that brings up to 50,000 immigrants from underrepresented countries to the U.S. each year. He's disparaged the system as a horror show and repeatedly misrepresents how the lottery is administered, while demonizing and insulting with racist overtones those who receive the visas. Diversity preferences are essential to preserving a robust and vibrant immigration system. As President Biden will reaffirm our core values and preserve the critical role of diversity preference to ensure immigrants everywhere have the chance to legally become U.S. citizens. By the way, in that diversity is not necessarily people who would long-term benefit Democrats. Increase the number of visas offered for permanent work-based immigration based on macroeconomic conditions. Create a visa category to allow citizens of countries to petition for higher levels of immigrants to support their growth. Enforces the rules to protect American and foreign workers alike. Expands protections for undocumented immigrants who report labor violations. That's what he's talking about with the lawyers. Increase visas for domestic violence survivors. But, if Romania did that, Melania would be back there in a shot.
Then we have massively expand immigration during a global pandemic, taking jobs from unemployed Americans. End all travel bans, including from jihadist regions. So,
yeah, that's what they wrote, including from jihadist regions. So people who are trying to escape from jihadists killing them and their families, like Yazidis and other people like that, they can't come here and escape that like, I don't know, other foreign immigrants did, like Irish and English and Germans and Polish people did.
Now we have travel bans. A lot of you said I didn't get the travel ban, and you were wrong. We got the travel ban. We lost in the Ninth Circuit. We lost again in the Ninth Circuit, and then we won in the Supreme Court. We have a very strong travel ban.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want people that are going to come in and blow up our cities.
Yeah, nobody does.
Do things.
The people that we want to come in from those areas are the people who are trying to escape that, who don't want to die either, and believe in the American dream and want to contribute to it. It's just like
and
we're not like passing out flyers for suicide bombers.
Frankly, with the liberal Democrats running the cities that we do have, where they do have problems, maybe they wouldn't mind, but I would mind. And
you know what, guys? We need to just blow it up and start over.
People of this country mind. So listen to this. End all travel bans. He's talking about the ban that I won, that everybody said I didn't win. They said I didn't win because in the lower court we lost, that we lost in the appellate division, and then we won in the Supreme Court. So he said, he lost. And they're right at the lower level. But in the meantime, we won.
I moved on her like a bitch, and I offered to buy her some furniture, but in the end, I roofied her, so I'm really a winner.
Supreme Court. So it's in effect, but they didn't say that. They said he lost, which again is fake news, but that's the way they do it. So end all travel bans, including from jihadist regions, they specify that. Grant mass amnesty. Everybody gets amnesty, mass amnesty. Think of that. And this is create a roadmap to citizenship for massive, massive numbers. And we're not talking about DACA because I'm going to take care of DACA much better than the Democrats did. The Democrats had their chance, and they blew it.
They created DACA. Obama Biden created DACA. They're why it exists. You lost fighting it. I'm going to do so good. I did the legal test on it, so.
But we're going to take care of DACA because I'm going to.
Trump is my president, be respectful. Grow up. Yeah, like you were, I'm sure during Obama you were begging all your Republican friends to be nice. Eat a bag of frog assholes, you sycophant.
Be doing in the not too distant future, pretty soon, I'm going to be signing a new immigration action. Very, very big merit-based immigration action. That based on the DACA decision, I'll be able to do. Vastly expand low-skilled immigration to the United States. So that
Yeah, that's the goal. We need a bunch of people who aren't skilled. You mean don't base some people's visas strictly on their economic value to the country?
want a lot of people come in with low skills. I like merit.
I thought you liked the uneducated.
Think of that. Vastly expand low.
I'm thinking, but why would I think about what Stephen Miller wrote on a piece of paper for you that misrepresents reality? Flying outside your window. Would you want that? I think not.
To the United States. These are the things that are in the plan. This is Biden. Biden's on radical left. Increase refugee admissions by 700%. Huh.
Because you brought it down 1,000%?
That's a lot. By 700%. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing.
Yeah, they've heard of such a thing. They're like making up numbers, the way you make up numbers like we've created 3 million jobs because 30 million people lost their jobs and 3 million went back to work. And so we now have 33 million new jobs.
Increase refugee admissions by 700%. Abolish law enforcement as we know it.
Oh, yeah? What are we going to do? Do they get pinwheel hats? What's happening?
I think the police do an incredible job in this country.
Agreed. Demilitarize the police, I think, is important. I think we're all focused on demilitarization of the police, not defunding them. But also there are a lot of areas where cops should not be forced to go to sites where they are the wrong solution to that problem and they're put in danger themselves or the people who are involved don't. It is not a legal problem. We are a rich country. If Reagan hadn't undone this program a long time ago, we wouldn't even have this conversation.
And you're going to have a rogue, terrible cop on occasion, like you do in any industry, in any business.
A rogue, terrible cop. Like you have anytime, in an 80s movie, where he gives up his gun and his badge and he plays by his own rules. That's going to happen.
In any profession. But I think they do an incredible job.
Wait a minute. You get a rogue, terrible cop in any profession? Can I have some fries with that? You have to ask yourself one question. Did I give you 6 fries or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, I've forgotten myself in all this excitement. So you have to ask yourself one question. Do you want the Happy Meal, punk?
Abolish law enforcement as we know it. End cash bail. No bail. Just, we let you right out. Look at
No. You'd still do bonds.
what's happened to New York. Crime is up. Shootings are up at numbers that nobody's ever seen before. Look at Chicago.
Yeah, when you're involved in those kind of crimes, you don't pay cash bail. Those are bonds. Those are hundreds of thousands of dollars, usually $50,000 your baseline. That's a bond. Basically, we outsource bounty hunters to you to keep track of you for court, so we don't have to do it.
What a disaster. And we're waiting for them to call us because we're all set to go. We have the FBI.
Why in the world? Hold on, what is this noise in here?
We have Homeland Security. We have everybody ready to go. We have the National Guard. They're all ready to go. End cash bail, releasing dangerous criminals.
In lieu of cash bail, we will have someone from Department of Homeland Security watch you until court?
Onto our streets. Cash bail. New York just did that. Other places have done it. They haven't turned out too good.
Yeah, it's for stuff like petty theft and drug possession. Shit that we don't need to be housing people in jail for.
Abolish.
If you don't show up for court, then you get bonded. And you're remanded into custody unless you post bond.
Completely the death penalty. And I know there's a lot of debate on the death penalty.
Yeah, it's a dumb idea. A lot of people deserve to die. No question. On a personal level, I'm with you. But in a lot of cases, most of these folks that end up on death row, the vast majority of them, have other cases and other deaths in their history that go either unsolved or we don't know who else was involved in the crime because we get them on one charge. Like that dude Kim Kardashian is trying to get out, who raped a woman in Santa Barbara. That's how she turned him in. They didn't even charge him for the rape. They put him in jail for the murders they were looking for him on. That woman won't ever get justice if you put that guy to death because they won't try him for that. And if he had somebody helping with any of these crimes, you'll never find out who they are because the guy's dead. Serial killers. It's one of the reasons why you lock them up in a room and keep them there forever. Because if later on you go, hey, by the way, did you have a buddy help you with this crime? Because we noticed it was different from the other ones. I would rather them be locked up forever. One of the reasons, by the way, why the United States has as many people locked up as we do, because we talk a lot about how the American prison system has so many people incarcerated versus other countries. One of the big reasons is because ours live. Because we don't kill them.
It has been for a long time.
Even the ones that are involved in murder and gun crimes and all kinds of stuff. There's tons of commuted people getting life imprisonment for serial rape and murder and stuff. They're not dying. And that's a better punishment, in my personal opinion, on a one-to-one level. And secondarily, if we find out they were engaged in another crime and we need evidence against somebody else, they're there to be asked instead of, well, they're dead. Well, he could have asked them where those bodies were buried, but, sorry, ma'am. We'll never find the body of your kid because we needed to kill him for this reason. Plus, I don't know anybody, you can be wrong. The problem with the death penalty is, and my primary objection is you can be wrong. And even when you're not, I don't know anybody who's lost a relative or had somebody killed that if you went to them and you honestly said, look, to have a system in place where we got the person that killed your relative. We got them. We know it's them, red-handed. We know that they're the one who murdered them. But to put them to death, we have to legally have a system in place where statistically it is impossible we don't eventually kill an innocent person. So we can lock them up forever, or we can kill them, but in that process we will more than likely kill someone who didn't do anything. And in the name of your relative, what would you prefer? Would you rather us lock them up forever in a cell and let them live out their days completely without freedom? Or would you like us to kill them and a total stranger that did nothing? That's my problem with it. And I don't know that many people who are victims of violent crimes who would go, yeah, I don't care, kill them and just, a random human being. They probably had it coming.
Sometimes they
lock up innocent people all the time. Yes, and then those people largely get out. Prisons are not full of innocent people. Sorry, they're not. Prisons are full of guilty people who are guilty for the third or fourth time. So many people walk on their first or second charge. It's like being pulled over for speeding. Every time somebody goes, I wasn't speeding, you've sped 25 times. You got caught today. Don't bullshit me. The same thing is true of most people who are in prison. Shawshank. Yeah, Does it never happen? No. But the whole point is, if you lock somebody up for a long time and then you find out they were innocent, they're alive and you can release them. But if you start killing people through state-sanctioned murder, then you're going to be wrong at some point. And there is no way that hasn't happened. Statistically, in any other situation, there's no way we haven't killed an innocent person.
Use the death penalty, depending on the crime. You know what happened today with regard to the death penalty.
Yeah, you used it. Now, if that dude was engaged in any other crime or could implement somebody who's out walking around who's also murdering or raping people, we don't have that guy's information anymore. He's dead.
Appoint social justice prosecutors in order to free violent criminals.
That's what they're there for. Freeing violent criminals. By the way, aren't you the dude who just had Kim Kardashian come in and get some girl who shot her John in the back of the head while he was sleeping out of jail early? I mean, isn't that what you've been doing recently? Isn't that almost all of the Kim Kardashian cases right now? Is like the cocaine madam in Georgia? There are dudes who killed for her who are still in jail, but she got out. What are you talking about?
So they want to appoint
This is what you were doing.
social justice prosecutors to free violent criminals.
Which you've done.
End mandatory minimums.
Right. Judge's discretion.
And that's by empowering judges to determine appropriate sentences.
Right. Exactly.
But
unless, of course, you want to make the Republican argument for top-down federal policy.
fighting to repeal mandatory minimums at the federal level and give states incentives to repeal their mandatory minimums. We could go on for days. Incentivize
You apparently, and still say nothing.
prison closure. So they want to close our prisons. They now want to abolish. They want to abolish our police departments.
They want to polish our police officers. They're going to polish them. They're going to polish.
Mandatory minimums. And that's by empowering judges to determine appropriate sentences.
Mm-hmm.
By fighting to repeal mandatory minimums at the federal level and give states incentives to repeal their mandatory minimums.
Right.
We could go on for days.
Uh-huh.
Incentivize prison closure. So they want to.
Yeah, it would be better if you didn't have to have as many prisons. If you had alternatives to prison. I mean, you're trying to disincentivize prison by getting Roger Stone out. I mean, that's an empty cell.
Close our prisons.
Where's that money from the state going?
They now want to abolish. They want to abolish our police department.
They want to abolish the police department.
They want to abolish our
They're going to polish them.
prisons, I guess. Incentivize jail and prison closures as populations decline.
Right. Incentivize, as the populations of the prisons decline, close the prisons. So the idea is that if you have fewer people in prison, crime has been going down since 1992, for the record. As that goes down, then you close prisons so you don't have to keep filling them up because they're for-profit prisons.
Ensure the resources saved are invested directly into those communities. So they want to close them rather than.
How can normally he's high on Adderall and Xanax. I think he's on the downslope, Peter.
Have them for some very bad people that are not going to behave when they get out. You see that in New York. They allowed a lot of criminals out, and those criminals are causing havoc.
Yeah, Michael Cohen started writing a book. What is the world coming to? Roger Stone was on Hannity talking shit.
And then they got rid of their incredible and legendary crime squad.
Crime Squad. I love that show. Dum da dum dump. Dum da dum dum dum. Crime Squad.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Bad things are happening in New York.
They got rid of the Crime Squad. They're not even looking for crimes anymore. New York cops don't even look for crime.
Bad things are happening.
Oh,
I love New York. I hate to see what's going on.
well, why'd you move out? Oh, because you violated the tax law there, and you don't want to pay state taxes, so you're moving to Florida, even though you don't live in Florida. You can't live in Florida. You're not allowed to live at Mar-a-Lago because it's not a residence, and you signed a deal with the state to not use it as a residence, but you're doing that anyway, so you're committing mail fraud.
End solitary confinement. Free federal housing for former inmates. So federal housing now can go to inmates, former inmates.
Yeah. A lot of people who've paid their debt to society have a hard time getting back on their feet. And if they've paid their debt to society, they should be able to work their way back into becoming functional members instead of falling back into crime or living on the streets. But, you know, who wants to solve the homeless problem?
Rejoin Paris Climate Accord and seek an even higher level of restrictions. Oh, I didn't notice that.
Uh-huh.
So they want to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, and they
Wait, how do we jump around to this? Did he flip his paper over
want
again?
to seek an even higher level of restriction. In other words, make it worse than it was.
Or better? Maybe those higher restrictions are on other countries, if you read it.
Mandate net zero carbon emissions for homes, offices, and all new buildings by 2030.
New buildings. Net zero. Net zero means there's going to be some, but then there can be offsets, and the offsets would zero that out over time, both in the construction industries, the materials you choose, the fixtures, the electrical systems, improvements in HVAC units, solar panels being paid for by the state, which is already happening. Tons of very successful state-based solar programs. Even if the solar system only runs your HVAC unit, that in and of itself can net it out. Like, this is...
Basically means no windows.
No windows. They're going to outlaw windows.
Nothing. It's very hard to do. I tell people when they want to go into some of these buildings, how are your eyes? Because they won't be good in 5 years. And I hope you don't mind cold office space in the winter and warm office space in the summer.
What? Windows and your eyes will fail? And office... good
Because your air
God.
conditioning is not the same as the good old days. Mandate zero.
Why not? Whatever happened to American ingenuity and...
Carbon emissions from power plants by 2035. Zero. We're talking about zero. Nothing can go in the air.
No. Net, meaning what goes in has to be offset by other industries and other stuff that is lower than that. So it's a balancing act until you can completely eliminate it through technology.
Mandate net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And I believe he's...
The Biden is anti-window. I'm going to run, like, and this, he couldn't wait to come out and give this speech. He saw Biden's speech this morning, and he's like, I got to get out there and answer this stuff. You're going to have no windows.
That he's bringing it down.
No, there's not been a single question.
He wants no petroleum product. He wants no oil or gas. I don't think Texas is going to do too well. They're going to get rid of about 7 million jobs if you go by the Biden plan. I don't think that Oklahoma, North Dakota, Pennsylvania...
There won't be a single window in any of those states.
Be too happy with that. And many other states. Ohio. Mandate all 5...
Net zero means you're making more advances in clean energy than you're causing pollution. Do you have any idea how many children go to the emergency room with asthma-related, pollution-related illnesses every year?
100,000 school buses and all 3 million government vehicles be changed to zero-emission vehicles within...
Yeah, cool.
5 years. I've heard of worse than that.
He's actually for it. I've heard worse than that.
Install 500,000 taxpayer-funded charging stations nationwide.
Yeah. Do you have any idea how much we supplemented gas stations? Do you have any idea? Every 1950s and 1940s horror film started with people running out of gas because there weren't gas stations. We subsidized the oil and gas industry for decades. If you paid what gas actually costs in terms of cleanup alone, it'd be $8 a gallon. We subsidize it because it helps us in other industries. We manipulate the markets. They literally just did this thing with Russia and Saudi Arabia and getting Mexico to cut their output down by 100,000 barrels, and we cut by 250,000. They manipulate the shit out of that market all the time to keep oil and gas costs manageable so that they maximize profit without keeping people from driving. That is the entire game. The government has always done that because the long-term benefits at the beginning, especially, of having oil and gas available for the growing car industry was that it made our economy blossom. That was the point. But now the return on that investment is negative. So we should do the same thing that we did with oil and gas with shit that doesn't pollute us.
Here's a bad one, really bad one. End school choice. There is nothing
End school choice
that the African American community wants more than school choice. And
well, Trump is our first black president, so he knows better than anybody.
mothers and fathers are going to be very happy to see him be defeated just on that alone. End school choice. So Joe Biden wants to end school choice, end tax credit scholarships serving disadvantaged students in 26 states.
End taxpayer-funded scholarships in 26 states. What? Since when are Democrats dialing back subsidized scholarships? What were they for?
14 million Americans with education savings accounts and get rid of school choice, having to do with school choice. Eliminate.
You mean Betsy DeVos's plan?
School choice.
Undercut local schools?
Washington, D.C. You know what they've done in Washington. They have some incredible example right here. Example. I know of one example. I think they have a number of them, but one is incredible.
Example? Well, if you bring a single example, that pretty much ends the argument. Nothing like an anecdotal. It's almost like that doctor who wrote you that letter that gave you the great idea about injecting disinfectant and shoving light bulbs up people's asses to solve COVID-19. It's a great example.
Abolish.
Example this.
All charter schools. Charter schools are doing great.
Are they?
And funding for charter schools in poor neighborhoods. We don't want charter schools in poor neighborhoods. Well, that's not fair. Abolish educational standards. Abolish in the suburbs. You're going to abolish the suburbs with this. Enforce.
Abolishing suburbs. We're abolishing the suburbs. No more suburbs. They're not allowed.
Biden's radical AFFH. That's the AFFH regulation that threatens to strip localities of federal affordable housing funds unless they change their zoning laws to fit the federal government's demands. So what you have, I've been watching.
Wait, are you coming out against a top-down federal program to control funds?
For years in Westchester, coming from New York. They want low-income housing built in a neighborhood. Well, I'm ending that rule. I'm taking it out. So I spoke with Ben Carson the other day. We're going to be taking it out. I've watched that whole thing go, and now they want to make it twice as bad.
We've watched your whole thing go.
In the suburbs. In the suburbs. Mothers aren't happy about that. Fathers aren't happy about that. They worked hard to buy a house, and now they're going to watch the housing values drop like a rock, and that has happened. Drop like a rock.
Gee, I wonder why housing markets aren't doing that well currently. Could it be that there are 15% of Americans out of work?
So we're not going to do that. We're going to do the exact opposite.
Could it be that 50 million people don't have jobs, and more than likely 30 million of those jobs are never coming back?
Probably there has never been a time.
Oh no, it's because Biden's planning on banning suburbs so you won't be able to own a house?
And this is just a few. This is
just me talking out of my ass. This is just some paper I found on the floor under Tucker Carlson's desk when I was looking for my nuts.
It's much worse than that.
It's much worse.
We did this very quickly.
No shit.
It's probably never been a time when candidates are so
This doesn't look thrown together at the last minute and poorly thought out at all.
different. We want law and order. They don't want law and order.
They want SVU.
We want strong, closed borders with people able to come in through merit, through
They want Borders books open again.
a legal.
Selling Mary Trump's book, which went on sale today. And I already have my copy of it, and I'll be reading for the weekend. We'll be doing some live readings on the radio show this weekend.
Process. They don't want to have any borders at all. They're going to rip down the wall. It was hard to get that built.
Oh boy, was it now? It was so difficult stealing funds from the Defense Department.
Once it was reluctantly aroused.
So
it was hard to get it aroused, and it is hard to get it aroused, but we got it aroused.
So,
And now it's almost completed. It'll be completed by a little after the end of the year. They want to rip
yeah, it's going to be in a very short period of time. Thank you, Scooter.
down, and it's had such an impact. It's incredible. It stops trafficking, human trafficking of women.
Yeah, but you know what's really stopped trafficking across the border? COVID-19.
And children, but women mostly. Human trafficking, one of the worst things ever, all at a level that it's never been at because of the internet. You think of it as an ancient statement. You wouldn't think that's possible today, but
What? Why would we think that any subversive industry wouldn't be helped by the existence of the internet? And why is specifically female human trafficking up during your administration? What?
it's human trafficking of women and children.
I
And
can't.
they want to let that continue. The wall has stopped it so much because they will go over to a section where there aren't people, not an entry.
Just where there's just nobody hanging around. They're like, hey, there's nobody over here. Let's sneak across a boatload of women for where are these going? They're going to a massage parlor outside of Doral.
And they'll make a left into the United States.
Make a left. Make a left.
They're on their way. They can't do that anymore. We have a 30.
No, they have to go. They have to go left and then right and then go into Home Depot and spend $8 and build a ladder pulley and climb it in 30 seconds.
Wall that
And while they're tunneling under it.
goes 6 feet into the ground. It stops a lot of the tunneling because they're pretty good at tunnels.
Yeah. Any tunnel that's not at least 8 feet under the ground.
Watch the tunnels, and we have equipment for that. But you can't make a left anymore and come into the United States.
You can't make a left. You have to go right. That's the difference with Republicans in charge. You have to make a right. Thank you so much. Was that Patty? Yes, thank you, Patty.
It's loaded up with human traffic. So they want to take down the wall. They want to have open borders. Think of open borders today, though, with the pandemic. I mean, the timing is sort of interesting, but with the pandemic.
You were just arguing for migrant workers for big ag business in the border states 3 weeks ago.
So there's never been a time when two
It's in the 2013 bill. Democrats and Republicans both support it.
candidates were so different. I mean, I've seen races where it's like the same exact platforms. I'm even
Graces? You mean races?
talking about essentially Democrat, Republican. There's not that much difference. There's a little difference, but there's not much. You choose one because you like the way they look, you like the way they sound, you like the way they talk, you like something about one and you don't like the other. But there's never been a difference. Here's one of the greatest differences. This is without question the single biggest difference. If you want law and order, for instance, I enacted recently when I saw all that was going on with federal monuments. We don't have the right to do states, although we're trying to find it. But with the monuments, where they wanted to rip down Andrew Jackson, they wanted to rip down George Washington. They were actually heading over to the Jefferson Memorial, if you can believe that.
Yeah, who was in front of the line? AOC and Biden? Is this a policy position of the Biden administration? By the way, how many more Confederate statues do you think should be put up north of the Mason-Dixon line?
But this has been going on, and I found an act that we've used, and we have many, many people in jail right now. Many, many people in jail all over the country.
Based on the exact same law. And by the way, the mandatory minimums he's bitching about is 10 years for this. Is 10 years for defacing a statue. And that's what he's pissed that we're going to take that away. That these assholes might get 2 years and community service afterwards, where they have to clean statues for a living for 5 years.
Because they tried to destroy, or in some cases got it down, a federal statue or monument.
That's weird. It's almost like they're doing what the Confederate generals were trying to do to the country. Are you going to put up Antifa statues then? It's part of our history. I mean, we need to have a really skinny teenager, or college student, wearing a vegan anarchy shirt with a big A with a circle around it, throwing a Molotov cocktail at a cop. We need a statue of him. It's part of our history. You can't honestly, if people want to wear the Antifa flag, it's free speech as far as I'm concerned. It's free speech. I don't know why they want to take the Antifa flag off of the cars at NASCAR. I think it's a loser move. Thank you, Heather. $1 per troll in 10 minutes. Oh, I appreciate that. It's crazy over there, isn't it?
We haven't had anybody making a move since I enacted this. I signed an executive order a couple of weeks ago, and it says very simply, 10 years in jail. You do it, 10 years in jail.
It won't stand up in court, though. You have to, and again, mandatory minimums. Federal mandatory minimums on state crimes.
The amazing part is we were able to catch
it was already in the law.
Everybody, because
10 years was the recommended sentence.
Thanks to all of...
Yeah, where are the Hitler and Hirohito issues? It's part of our history. I mean, they should be right up there with Robert E. Lee in the America Garden or whatever the shit he's
on
building.
Television, we appreciate it.
Good
but
God.
We have their pictures. We have them.
In 10 minutes, I'm on another podcast. I got to bail out on this. This is going on forever.
And standing on...
Oh my God, what was that? The double wank? This is Trump doing his impersonation of him being between Sergei Lavrov
all over the
and
country,
Putin
because they tried
at
to
a party.
Destroy, or in some cases got it down, a federal statue or monument. At the same time, some people like these statues and monuments, but it can be removed, but you have to go through a legal process. So they were going to have 20 to 25,000 people that night. Nobody showed up. Nobody.
What, we're talking about Tulsa now?
You know that because you were disappointed to see that. The next night, I believe 22 people showed up. They said, we're going to make it...
Was that the New Hampshire rally?
Friday night instead. And 22 people showed up. 4 were actually arrested because we have pictures of them knocking down other statues. So they're in jail now.
Yeah, country of 325 million people. We don't have an exact count. We need to get one. And we got 4 people for trying to pull down a statue of Andrew Jackson. Law and order. Meanwhile, I'm releasing Roger Stone after he admits guilt to lying to and witness tampering and witness intimidation and threatening a witness with death and the murder of their pet. Thanks, Megan. Thank you so much.
So there has never been an election where we've had this kind of difference.
Oh, God.
We want strong borders. Without borders, you've heard
question?
me say it 1,000 times. Without borders,
Right.
you don't have a country. They don't want to have borders. They want to have open borders. It's radical left, and it'll destroy our country.
By the way, for the record, I am not, quote unquote, radical left. I'm a Democrat, and I plan on voting in this election for Joe Biden because I want a country that's functional. and normal. Yeah, one that actually excels and doesn't like undermine every safety catch we have, so that we save $23 million to spend $6 trillion.
20 years ago, Venezuela
You've never seen one episode of Lab Rats. What is wrong?
was a very rich.
It's not my podcast. I'm doing it's a KISS podcast. I've got to join it via Zoom in about 5 minutes.
Country, one of the richest anywhere. Per capita, one of the richest. Tremendous oil reserves. Now they don't have water. They don't have food. They don't have medicine.
This is the Biden's gonna turn us into Venezuela thing.
Do everything we can to take care of the people, but they have nothing. And that's exactly the ideology that you have going over here. If I wasn't there to stop it, if I wasn't here to
Oh my God, this is just a rally speech. He doesn't take a single question.
say, no way, that's not going to happen, we'd be in some mess. We'd be in some mess. And Pelosi and Schumer and Bernie and Joe, they'll never stop it. They don't have the power, the strength to stop it. It's beyond them. But we do.
Yeah, the squad is overrunning Pelosi. That's why she's so popular with the TYT crowd.
So there's never been a time like this where you've had an election of people so different. Okay, a couple of questions. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Really?
Sir, you just spent the better part of an hour explaining why Americans should choose you and not your opponent. Yesterday you said on Twitter, be careful what you wish for. I guess the question is, do you see yourself as the underdog in this race? Do you see yourself losing in the fall?
No, I don't. I think we have really good poll numbers. They're not suppression polls, they're real polls. You look at the intercoastal in Florida, you look at the lakes, you see thousands of boats with Trump signs, American signs. You've got the Trump-Pence sign all over. You look at what's
Yeah, you're winning that much sought-after boater block.
going on. You look at bikers.
Bikers and boaters. I've got that locked up. Who needs suburban, college-educated housewives when you've got boaters and bikers in the panhandle locked?
Miles and miles riding up highways proudly with their signs. I have.
Hold on.
We won a race where it was the same thing. 2016. We had.
I have to pause off and grab my go on to my next
When was the last time you listened to these records?
show. So I'm going to join
3 days.
it in progress. You can hear them talking.
Listening to the,
I don't need it. You don't need it any more of this. I'm going to go do a KISS podcast on the original
Really?
4 solo records. So much love to you
I
guys.
actually like it.
Hold on, I have to
Really?
mute this.
Yeah, I do.
I
I do.
have to
I'll
figure-
get into why. I'm going to save all that.
That's cool, yeah.
We'll save this for later. All right.
We'll save the good shit for
It-
the
it-
public
You can
consumption.
already, yeah, we're already talking about it
Speaking
in
of
the chat.
consumption, what's everybody drinking tonight?
All right, and I've got to go get a beverage. Apparently, we need that. You can hear them in the background. All right, signing off, you guys. They will be posting this later on, and I will give you guys a link. Cheers, everybody.
Gotcha. I was hoping you'd be busting out some Mick Golden Light in my honor because we can't get it out here.
Sounds like a KISS party happening in the background.
You mean this stuff
Peace.
here?
All right.
Right there.
Cheers, everybody. Take care. Thank
Al,
you,
how
Can't Stop Line.
doing? Are you here?
I am here. Hold
I'm
on.
still muted.
I'm here. I'm getting set up. Give me a second.
All good, buddy.
I'm finishing my other stream and I'm live on the internet with that while I'm jumping to you. So,
Oh.
yes,
All right. Well, handle your business.
absolutely. Well, I don't have time for that. But give me a minute. All right. All right. She's radioactive. All right. Much love to you guys. I will see you guys next time. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody close to you. Reach out to somebody else. And remember, even if I hate your politics, I want you to live through this virus and I want you to vote. So cheers. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
I'm ready for you. Ugh. I'm all out of jackets.
The early story on this is going to be fantastic. I'll post it everywhere, Brett, but mostly on Twitter and Facebook for everybody. Cheers, everybody.